Yes.
Awesome. This has been something I have been dreaming of for years since we moved to Hamilton County in 2014. So I thank you, Erica and Cindy, and everyone who's been involved in getting it to where we're at, because we're excited to be a part of it. I'll briefly share a bit of our production strategies here in the wine side, and kind of walk you through the vineyard stuff while we're all seated inside. Feel free, though, to kind of make your way through the vineyard if you would like, as we head out to the bus and check things out there, because it's worth seeing, especially in this season. Generally, I like to say we start our calendar at the beginning of the year, being January, February. When we catch the warm days, we'll go out and we'll start the vineyard season by pruning. We'll take most of the growth off of the plants every year to rejuvenate them and make sure that they're producing the most yield that we can get. So you'll see the trunk and you'll see the cordon that goes along the wire, and we'll kind of count buds and adjust accordingly to get, like I said, the yield that we need. So most of that trimmings, we mulch right back in with a flail mower because that's good fertilizer nutrition to put back into the plants. So pruning is kind of step one in the vineyard for us. After that, we wait for spring to arrive and things to green up. We can adjust our pruning as needed. This year, we've been very fortunate to use as little chemical input as ever. We manage our vineyard as close to organically as possible here because this is where we're raising our family and our kids, and this is where we want people to connect with their food, and we don't want to have to warn them about scary labels or things to worry about here. You know, it's just please go out and experience it in your life. So very few inputs actually are required in our vineyard. It's been a beautiful thing to start with healthy plants and keep them healthy and not have to worry so much about fungus and insects and things attacking. One of the more unique things that we've done in the vineyard here at Backcountry is we, in 2020, started raising chickens in our vineyard. We use the feed from Cindy's mill as supplement to our chickens, moving tractors through the vineyard, and our our chickens are moved through the vineyard in the season, then are raised on the grass where they can enjoy like the bugs, and they help us mow. So there's less inputs for us on that, and then we get the benefit of harvesting the meat at the end of their life cycle here. What spurred that for us, I guess, is we were looking for a better nitrogen fertilizer source, inputs that we could put on the vineyard that are coming from a more natural cycle, and the chickens fit beautifully. And then it also has the benefit of having people out here enjoying a glass of wine and again connecting with where their food is coming from. We do sell those chickens here. We process right on the farm, so start to finish. The bird is here with us, other than from hatchery, and that's just been a really fun thing to teach us as a learning experience, and get our kids involved in here, as well as sharing the knowledge that we've gained with people who are visiting the winery. But we're open here at the winery April through December, just weekends. Right now, people are always welcome, open to the public, come and enjoy a glass of wine or beer with us, and learn more about what we have to offer. We do host a lot of special events, live music, trivia nights, those kind of things. We're obviously a very family-friendly winery. We're raising our children here as well. In addition to that, we do also host private events like weddings and class reunions and those sort of things. A few of you asked about the history of the building. Like I said, my husband and I moved here in 2014. And it took us about 18 months to bring the barn back to life. We know that the barn is at least 100 years old. We don't have a lot of documentation before that. But when we moved out here, it was just a dirt floor, old barn on an acreage that hadn't been used in 20 years, and we really brought it back to life and had a vision of being able to share it with you all and things like this. So we opened the winery here in 2016, and then obviously have grown and added, like any small business, shifted with times, and are happy to be here today. We added our beer selection in 2021 just as a complement to the wine offerings. We also carry a selection of all Iowa meats and cheeses. We're happy to work with a lot of Hamilton County and other local producers to offer that, so people have some snack items to sample and enjoy while they're here. Yeah, that being said, open April to December. The vineyard you'll see is like prime condition for us right now. We're probably about a month away from harvest, just a few weeks yet until the grapes will ripen enough that we'll put them in and start the winemaking process. So right now we're just walking daily to monitor for bugs or fungus. We're checking right now sugar levels and pH of our grapes. When those get to the ideal conditions is when we'll harvest, and having this plot so close to home, it's nice for us to have good control over that. I think the best wine is made with the best quality grapes, obviously, so starting with control over that side has been really crucial for us. Once the grapes are brought in from the harvest, I should also put in the plug, we do a volunteer event. This will be our third season where we invite the public to come pick with us, and it's a really fun, unique opportunity to experience that side of the wine. We provide breakfast and just enjoy morning and chatting together. The tentative date for that is Saturday, August 19th. Again, that'll depend on how the grapes ripen and whether we get the next couple weeks, but we'll put that on the calendar, and that's a big day for us to get everything in. And at that point, like I said, we'll bring everything to process. I will walk through the back so you can see some of the equipment and things that we're working on here. So if you're ready to kind of scoop up, and we'll head that way.
Amber, I had a question. When we arrived, my son asked, how many grapes does it take to put in a bottle of wine?
I'm glad that you asked. We just did the math on this. Emma reminded me. We will pull about 5,000 pounds of grapes off of this parcel that we have here. It's about a fifth of an acre. If you divide that, we have about 140 plants. That gives you, what did we say, 35 pounds per plant. It takes 12 pounds of grapes to make a gallon. There's 5 bottles in a gallon.
Okay.
Roughly 2 pounds of grapes per bottle.
Okay.
What was the original question?
Like, I bet you've never counted grapes. He said, how many grapes?
Clusters here are going to be smaller than clusters of typical grapes that you can see like at the grocery store. Most of our clusters are about half a pound. So if you imagine like 4 good adult-sized handfuls equals a bottle.
Okay. Cool.
We like to say that when we're out picking, like every 5th cluster, like, oh, here's another bottle.
Nice. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Is there any other questions right now? Go ahead.
Do you raise all your own grapes, so even red and white?
We do not raise everything here. We would like to do as much as we can, but we do also network with other growers in the area that we've got to know through the years. And it's nice to have that network to bounce ideas off of and see what they're doing that's new or different. And like I said, in the 7 years we've been doing this, we've really built a good network of connections with people we trust when we're bringing in grapes from outside sources.
I did have one other thing I wanted to point out. I would like to acknowledge our director, Roz Lehman. She is here recording right now. But if you have any specific organic questions, feel free to ask myself or Roz if you're interested in any more information about organic certification or the various programs. We do have a lot of materials up here as well. And I would also like to point out David Bohr is here.
And I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. We're kind of cozy back here, but we wanted to give you a sneak peek of a little of the behind the scenes of how the magic happens, I guess, in the wine side. over here, we'll walk by so everyone gets a chance to see. When the grapes come in from the vineyard, one of the most important things that we can do is process them as quickly as possible so we don't worry about oxidation or spoilage occurring. So when we're picking as early in the morning as we can to bring the grapes in at a nice cool temperature, and then getting them right to our first process. We have a machine called the crusher destemmer, which does exactly that. It crushes the grapes and removes any leaves, stems, other material that we wouldn't want into the wine. And then the product that comes out of that machine at that point is called must. It's the combination of the skins and the grapes and the juice. That must in white wines will get pumped right into our press. We have a 1950s era German press that we purchased from another winery going out of business, which is really a gem of a dinosaur here for us, but works well, like every year, just consistently. We love it. The white wine grapes will get pressed pretty much immediately. We, again, as a strategy we've taken as a winery, have put as few inputs into the wine as possible because we want you to taste the flavor of the vineyard. We're not trying to make something artificial or fake, or what you're getting is the authentic product of the vineyard. So we don't really do a lot of adjusting or adding at any point in this process. We're using just the grapes and the juice coming out of the field. So white wines will get pressed immediately. That juice will get pumped into one of the tanks that you see here, and we will add our yeast to begin fermentation. Spent a lot of time in trials in yeast trials, finding the best commercially available cultivars that we can use to produce the ideal flavors and things that we're looking for. We have also played with natural fermentation and just using the natural culture on the skins and the grapes to ferment. It just provides a lot less control over the final product. So yeast is added when we pump the juice over to the tanks, and the initial fermentation process to convert most of the sugars to alcohol is really quite quick, first 2 to 3 weeks. And from that point on, we do a series of rackings where we are just letting the wine naturally settle and then pumping the wine off of that settlement. We call that the lees, the dead yeast that have finished their process of the wine making. So really, again, as light as possible on the wine. We don't do a ton of filtering or fining or additions of things to make that happen. We try to do it as naturally as possible. So this process will take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on the wine. Some clarify more naturally quicker than others. And then we aim for final bottling and production in the winter months, that January, February timeframe again, so we get everything packaged and ready to go again for the next growing season.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
Repeat the question.
The question is, what is the name of the label? Yes, all of our wines are produced under the Backcountry Winery label. Yes, we grow, the varieties of grapes that we grow here is Brianna, St. Pepin, some of the Frontenac Gris. So the St. Pepin varietal that you'll see on our menu is 100% ours. The Brianna varietal that you see on the menu is 100% ours. And then we do a few blends. Our Scenic Route Red, Our Lady's Best Friend, all are coming right from here on the farm. The first one, Brianna. Brianna is a good staple grape you'll see at a lot of wineries across the state in the Midwest, and was kind of our first recipe developed here with the grapes on the farm. Any other questions before? Go ahead. Oh, that's a good question. How are we reusing our lees? Any byproducts that we have here, the lees coming off of the tank, the pumice, it's called, when you're done pressing the grapes, the seeds and the skins and everything is getting composted right now and then spread either back on the vineyard or on the garden or used right here on the farm. So there's very few things that we're washing away or hauling off. We figure there's value in that and nutrition in that we can just continue recycling. That's a good question. Anything else right away? Okay, I do want to. Yes. The answer is right now we are in the middle of kind of a big move for us, and we're sort of revamping our brewing system. Like I said, we added beer in 2021, so it's a much newer process for us. Preston has sort of rebuilt his brewing system. My husband does all the beer brewing here on the property, so I know far less about that than I do about the wine side. Everything's getting moved into the room right behind the wall here, so I don't have a lot to show on that side. And our process is also not as developed on that side yet as it is on the winemaking. But yes, all of it is brewed here on property as well. This is the press. So this stainless piece of equipment that you see here is our crusher destemmer. The grapes are dumped into the top. This right here. The grapes are dumped right into the top and then fed through with a bit of an auger with paddles, and then the product final will be pumped out of the little thing at the bottom and over into the press. I talked a little bit about white wine grapes. I guess I didn't discuss red as deeply. Our red wine grapes are pumped right from this crusher destemmer into the tank where they'll ferment on skins. All of that whole grape pumped into the tank, and that gives the red wine its color and its depth of flavor. As it ferments, it's producing that, pulling that from the skins, and then we'll press anywhere from 24 hours to, days, weeks, months later. We've done a lot of experimenting with this. There's not a ton of information available in our cold hardy varietals of grapes as there is on things that have been produced for hundreds of years. So a lot of it we're still experimenting and developing and trying new things here because we're small enough that we can do that, and it's exciting for us to be able to share what we learn with others as well. The yellow machine is our press. So once the grapes have been through the crusher destemmer, we pump right into the top. There's like a man white in the top here, and the paddle, I'll say, the press comes in from the end, and we'll push all of the grapes in here. We'll have a catch hose down here that will pump the juice that's left over into the tank. So we've played around again with a series of cycling the press and knowing how much we can fit in and to get the best yield of juice from it. And then we'll scoop, the press will dump the pumice that's left over, we'll scoop it out and compost it in the back so that it breaks down enough that we can spread over to the vineyard.
So a certain ambient temperature you try to keep in the building? A certain ambient temperature?
Yeah, the question is, there is a certain temperature we try to keep in the building. We like to keep the warehouse here just in normal season under 80 degrees, and usually above 40 is ideal. During our harvest time, though, we can heat and cool through the floor in the building is how we're managing it. During our harvest day, though, we want it as cold as possible in here to prevent that oxidation and spoilage from occurring so quickly. So we'll cool down to as comfortable working temperature as can be. 50 would be ideal. We do not produce enough ourselves here to supply all of our need. Initially, yes, and then the business has, a blessing and a curse of the business as it's grown beyond, and we've started to network with other growers to get the things that we need. Go ahead.
What's the cleaning process like for these presses?
That's a good question. She asked about the cleaning process of the press and really all of the equipment here. We built our own sanitizing system where we're using a series of caustic and acid rinses. So we'll make a solution of a really high pH, and that helps break down any organic films, anything that maybe you can't visibly see, to make sure that the high pH followed by a very low pH acid rinse to kill anything growing on the surfaces of those tanks. We prefer to use as much stainless equipment as possible to help with that. And then, we'll go through that pretty regularly. We like to do before and after every use on the equipment. Our tanks, our pumps, our hoses, all of that goes through that same process. Yeah. That's okay. We're gonna go through again the acres that we have here and how many pounds per gallon per bottle. So we just have a fifth of an acre here that we're managing this year. Up until this season, the last 7 years, we have managed 5 acres along the Boone River with a few more varietals there. We gave up management of that this year. The owner took it back over. We'll still be purchasing grapes from them, but there was an opportunity for him to come back in and us to come back out. And our management practices there may be a little different than what they're doing there. Here we have just a fifth of an acre. We have 140 plants. We'll get about 5,000 pounds off of those, which is about, correct. No, 1/5 of 1 acre. Correct. Correct. We will buy grapes from other growers. And that depends on what's available from year to year. We have, like I said, a few growers that we trust, that we agree with, that we prefer, and that we try to stay as close to home as possible. If we can be within a 60-mile radius, that's ideal for us. So 5,000 pounds, 36 pounds per plant, 2 pounds per bottle. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Have you ever had,
Oh, go ahead in the back.
how long does it take to establish new grapes?
Oh, how long does it take to establish new grapes? Anywhere from 3 to 7 years to establish. We were very fortunate. We planted these here in 2015. We bought the acreage fall of 2014. We planted spring of 2015. We had tremendously ideal growing conditions those first couple seasons. We had good rains. We did install an irrigation system and ran it for the first year to help the plants get established. After that, we took it out. We weren't using it. But we had a partial crop on our second year, and we had pretty much full crop on our third year of production. So we were fortunate with the weather conditions. That being said, if you would have planted in the last few years, the grapes will probably take longer to get to maturity. You had a question?
Yeah.
Phil?
When you're crushing season or whatever you call it, how have you ever had any issues where you have this machine go down in the soil? What do you do?
Ooh, that's a good question. He asked if we ever had issues with our machinery going down, and if so, what do we do? I'm fortunate, thankful to be married to an engineer. Another one of the benefits in the business that we're in, being such a unique industry, that he has really been able to develop a lot of the things that we're using ourselves. Actually, we have backup controllers for most of these things. We've kind of found a unit that fits that can be interchangeable. So yes, it has happened. We lost our destemmer 2 years ago and had to just kind of rewire and rework to get it at least to functional so we could finish processing. We did, though, have another winery on call as backup to run down and grab their destemmer and bring it here if needed, or bring grapes to them. So the wineries in Iowa, I feel like, have built a really good network of supporting each other as needed. We're able to run supplies to them, at various times if they've needed. They've come in, helped us in a pinch if we need. So it's nice to have that as a backup. But most of the things we've tried to build redundancy into our systems, knowing that we usually can't just go to Baumgart's and get a replacement for the things that we need here.
So the bottling process?
Yeah, good question. She asked about the bottling process. Around the corner here, we'll see our filler before we head back up front. When the wine we feel is finished, that we're happy with where the final results are at, we will pump it over to a gravity filler. So it has a tank on top, and it just uses gravity to be as gentle as possible to the wine to put it into the bottle. We have a pneumatic corking machine that just uses its air power to push a cork in, and then we have a labeling machine, really simple, that we just put the roll of labels on and tap the foot pedal and the label goes on. So it's still a very manual process. It takes 2 to 3 people to run. These smaller tanks that you see here each hold 1,000 liters, or 264 gallons. We can finish one of those in about a half day. Usually that's 4 or 5 hours worth of work to get that 1,000 liters into bottle and packaged final, ready to go to consumer. Go ahead.
you add sugar to your?
In some of our sweeter varieties, we are adding sugar. Yes, you can see here, like our Lady's Best Friend, our Rendezvous Red.
After fermentation?
After fermentation. The drier wines we like to, like St. Pepin, Vignole, Marquette, those that you'll see are all either natural sugars where we've stopped fermentation early or have no sugar remaining at all.
And the beer? Do you grow your ingredients for the beer?
She asked if we grow the ingredients for the beer. We do not yet, although we did plant a little test plot of wheat in our garden plot this year and have been playing around with it. The malting process is very sensitive. It's something that we haven't gotten a chance to play around a lot with yet. I would love to be able to source local grains and do that ourselves. It's just a lot more knobs to turn and a whole thing we haven't quite cracked into yet. So maybe someday?
Hops.
Yes, hops grow fantastically in Iowa. We did grow hops here for several years actually before we opened the brewery and would love to find a few acres to grow more on again. There's been a few growers within Hamilton and Boone County that have brought us their harvest. Again, it's another really low input crop that does really well here. We've been able to use from a few growers and make some of our beers from that, but on a large scale, not yet. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Should be a sensitive question, you don't have to answer it for everybody, but what kind of capital outlay does it take to get something like this up and going?
That's a good question. He asked what kind of capital it takes to get the operation up and going. It depends. I know that's not a really great answer, but we were fortunate to start young, and before we had kids and a business and everything, we were just chipping away we both worked full-time, chipping away with the income that we had to get the barn functional. The shop was actually added later. We opened in 2016. We started construction of the shop here in 2017. So initially, if you would have been with us in our first season, all of the tanks, all of the process was happening right inside the brick barn itself. So like I said, the blessing and the curse of the business is we've been fortunate to just grow and chip off a little bit at a time. And then also, again, thankful to be married to an engineer who can help develop some of the processes so we're not having to invest quite the same and like the full cost of some of these systems if we can do with what we have here. That's been our goal, to be sustainable as a business.
So when you were still in the barn there, did you use the same machines here?
We did not have these machines yet, no. In those first couple seasons, we didn't have our own grapes in production yet either. So everything that we were buying from other vineyards, we were buying as juice, pre-processed, coming to us so we could just pump it in. These little tanks here are all of our originals that have been with us since 2016. So we were buying the juice, pumping it right into the tank, and starting our production process at that point. This equipment then came later.
So did you ever have to stomp the grapes like Lucy?
No
I
feet
was
are
thinking
used
the
in the
same
winemaking process here.
People come out, volunteers come out to help you pick.
Yes.
They don't get the stump, or do they really get to do anything with the next step?
No, she asked if volunteers come help us with our harvest, if they actually get to stomp or help us with the next phase. We don't stomp the grapes on harvest day, but we've been limited, I guess, in having people back here while we're processing because the equipment is dangerous. But not to say that we couldn't do a trial run, so at least you get to see, because I think it's a really cool thing, again, connecting with where your food, or drink, I guess in this case, is coming from. So most of the time we finish picking around noon, and then the processing happens afternoon. You guys can go home and enjoy the rest of your day while we work.
So that's on August 19th.
That's the tentative date we have set, is Saturday, August 19. We'll start at 7 a.m. We provide breakfast. We say 7 a.m. Come when you can, stay as long as you like. We'd love to have the more the merrier. Obviously, we provide breakfast and mimosas, and we usually wrap up before noon.
Sounds like a Rotary function.
Okay.
Should I put it in the tutor?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to answer any other questions when we get back here this afternoon, but I think at that we're gonna kind of wrap things up and start heading towards the bus.
All right, well, we have Dan here driving the bus today from CIT Charters and AIM, so thank you very much to them. I'm sure in the service industry he appreciates tips, so if he does a good job, feel free to show him some little gratuity at the end. I would like to thank Amber very much for that wonderful presentation of Backcountry Winery. So that was a awesome first stop, just a little taste of some of the businesses here in Hamilton County. So before I get started, how many people are from Hamilton County? Can I get a show of hands? Wow, all right, we have quite a few local people here. Well, that is wonderful. We're very happy to see all of you here supporting your county. That is kind of the mission of our day today, is to really highlight these businesses that are available. A lot of times, you know, go to the grocery stores or get our products from various sources, but there are so many local families and growers and businesses here able to support as well. So we look forward to bringing the people of Hamilton County even closer together today. So how many people are not from Hamilton County? Oh, so quite a group as well. I would say that is like 2/5 or something. So myself, me and my folks are from Cherokee, Iowa. So that is about an hour and a half away from here. And we are organic farmers up there. We've been organically certified since 2008. Has anyone traveled more than 2 hours? Okay, just a few people. Ah, yes, and Dan, yes. Cherokee's in Cherokee County. Yep. And where are you from?
Lynn County.
Lynn County. Okay. All right. And how many farmers or people that work in agriculture are with us today? So a good amount of people. And how many people buy organic produce when you go to the grocery stores? All right, a few people. All right, well, hopefully by the end of the day, we may have everyone's hands up. So, well, thank you all for joining us today from Hamilton County or beyond. A lot of our field days are targeted to the farming community, where we have a host farmer show different processes that they do. It might be something like cover crops, and we would go over all of that. And it's a great learning opportunity for a lot of farmers that might want to be transitioning into organics, or current ones to swap practices and learn some new ways of doing things. Just like Amber was saying, that creating that network of people in your industry and around you is always a valuable resource. So with the Iowa Organic Association, we actually have a new mentorship program that's going to be coming out. So we have a new program, TOP, which is the technical
Transition to Organic Partnership Program.
Transition to Organic Partnership Program. Yes, thanks, Roz. It is brand new, so we are really looking forward to that. But with that funding, we will be starting a mentorship program where we can hire seasoned farmers to pair up with ones that might be transitioning, so they could really mentor them in that process, because transitioning can be a little daunting of a task. There is lots of paperwork that goes into it, which is how I found the Iowa Organic Association myself, helping my brother as he was taking over our family farm with that paperwork that comes with annual certification and inspections and whatnot. So there is a lot of work that goes into that USDA certified organic label, and you will hear a lot more about that here coming up from Nob Hill Farm, as they are a certified organic producer as well in the state of Iowa. Now in Hamilton County, we actually have 15 certified organic businesses and or producers in the county. We do have another one, an IOA member here. Ortrude is on the bus as well. There you are. And she is also a farmer here in Hamilton County, and she did a field day for us at IOA last year. So we're glad that you guys were able to join us today. And yeah, so there's about 15 certified organic farmers here in Hamilton County. It varies throughout the counties, and really see it in pockets. I actually have some maps at the next place and back with our resources that show how many certified organic farmers, businesses, producers, partners are in each county. So you really see different pockets and places for potential growth. So the way that our partners post today are really working together, and it's something that's kind of contagious. Once people start to certify with organic farming, then you talk to your neighbors, and something that you might want to try. That's how my dad got his start. But obviously with the conservative practices and whatnot, it is very good for our soil. It can sequester that nitrogen and really help with climate change and things like that. My personal journey, I came to be really involved with organics due to health concerns that had arisen in my family. So just really looking into the food, our food, the root of it, where it comes from, how it's grown, and things like that are very important. So a lot of people that are in organic farming have their own different passions and drive behind that, as well as organic consumers, which many of us are here today. So I think we will be coming up.
As she had mentioned, we're Mike and Julie Robertson. We're from Webster City here, and we are Knottville Farm. So we're just going to go through, talk about our farm a little bit, and we'll get started here. So we've got our bus tour. We're planning on driving over, doing kind of a drive-by over at the farm. We're going to stay on the bus there due to biosecurity reasons. We have pigs and chickens, and those are at high risk in our area for diseases. So being organic, though, our best way to prevent those diseases is obviously good biosecurity and practicing those biosecurity practices. I have different routes to walk to the mailbox. So my kids know that we have plastic boots in the truck if we're somewhere else, and those types of things too. So so using preventative methods and just good animal husbandry to keep those animals healthy. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, some people do ask, or sometimes there's a misconception that what happens if your animals do get sick. We're required by law, and actually organic rules, the NOP rules, which is through the USDA and it's federal law, that we have to treat those animals if they are sick. Okay? There are some organic methods that you can use. We get basically a day or two, and they have to start showing improvement, or we are required to use something like an antibiotic or something of that nature. If we do that, as you can see, we have to be able to separate that animal out of the herd, or identify that animal so it doesn't go into the organic system. So it might have to go to a buying station or something along those lines. So that's why it's really important that we keep those animals healthy and from a financial standpoint. So, like I said, that's kind of a misnomer that people think that we don't treat our animals if they're sick. And the other thing is if they get sick, we don't want it to spread to the rest of the herd either. So, again, preventative methods, animal husbandry, those types of things are really, really important. So, in the winter, making sure that they're bedded down well so they don't get sick, making sure buildings are dry so they don't get pneumonia or something like that. All of those things are really important. So thank you for understanding that as we do that. We're a small diversified farm. Our land and our farm and the livestock are all USDA certified organic. We raise pigs, vegetables, and then we have laying hens as well for eggs that we sell. We are fair to finish, which means those pigs are born and raised their entire life on our farm. We have laying hens. We get day-old chicks. And they have to be started under organic management on that day that they're day-old chicks. So we get day-old chicks. We just have a small laying flock. We run anywhere from 100 to 200 laying hens. And then we still collect them and wash them all with our bare hands. So it does take some time and effort. And so the cleaner the eggs coming out of the coop, the better too. Clean bedding and everything else. And then we also have produce. We do about a half an acre, maybe a little bit more than a half an acre of produce that we sell as well. And we raise that all ourselves. And we'll talk about each one of those things a little bit as we go. We wanted to give you some pictures of the farm. And the kids that help out, we still use draft horses. We got one tractor and 2 draft horses is what we use. So this is a newer team. This is a team we used for 10 years. We farmed with as well. So that team was kind of a funny. That's another story. I won't take that much time. We've had some foals on the place. So that's Rocky. He was born out of Molly. Drilling oats down there. I've got some short videos too. Boys out in the oat field. The rake coming in from Balin. Just a few more. We still mow hay, rake hay with the horses. We drill the hay. The drill is, let's see here. My kids would be 4th generation on that drill, and the cultipacker is 5th generation. Her parents who farmed with great grandparents who farmed with horses. We still.
I'll interject here. When we bought the farm, in 2013, and by 16 we were transitioned to organic. This front section that you see in front of the barn, that's our garden. That's our vegetable production area. It's right out there for everybody to see as they drive by.
And the only buildings is the barn and the house. And there's an old cob shed that we knocked down. Otherwise, we built. That meets the fence and everything. And I don't mean we hired somebody to build it. I designed the buildings, build them. That whole thing. Just a few more pictures. That's a cultipacker that's been in her. It has wings too. We can put on it, but that's been in her family since it was her father's grandfather's cultipacker. We'll see if this works. It always gives people a good show when they walk by. Let's see how. Maybe not.
Here comes Molly and Dolly and
This was this spring.
Mike and Ollie. They're out planting hay this morning.
It was a warm morning. You can see they're sweat up pretty good, and they still have their winter coats on.
Spring is here. The cedar has actually been in Mike's family for 3 generations. It was his grandfather's and his uncle's, and now we're putting it to use. First time we've had the horses out this spring. They're doing really well.
Turning on a dime. Wow.
Yeah, pivot. That's the hope. That wheel doesn't move. Just keep right on the road.
Always learning the ropes.
That's our 5-year-old on the back there.
What's his name?
Oliver.
We call him Ollie.
I've got a great
If
nephew
you're
who was
wondering,
just
he's
born
in
yesterday.
preschool this year, so he doesn't go all day every day. So we're not skipping school for this. But he is learning.
That's. Yep, that's the end of that one. Oh, there we go. This one's pretty cool.
This is another clip for longer in the summer.
Just mowing the hay. That was second cutting, so it's shorter than first. First usually comes up to about their belly.
Do you train the horses?
No.
We did not train the horses. No, they're Amish trained horses.
We've got a family over there that we're really close with.
Yeah, we have.
How many acres do you have?
We have 10 total acres. About what, 4 is in hay?
Yeah.
Is there a reason you still want to stay horse-drawn? Like, is there a preference for it, or?
I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's fun.
I would say it.
My
Looks like it's
grandfather
fairly
was really
peaceful.
big, and he was one of the last ones to farm with horses in his county, and her
And
grandfather was
my
big.
grandfather was, I grew up in Eagle Grove, and he had
Yeah, one
horses
more that wants to turn, you know.
till the bitter end.
So is the hay for the livestock on the farm?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually use it for the sows and the horses both.
Okay.
So,
And the chickens, some.
the chickens, some, yeah. Yep, and it's all certified organic as well.
So you're doing vegetables, livestock, and the hay, no row crops?
No row crops.
Okay.
No.
Just wanted to clarify
take
that.
goats and use it as oat hay, because I can't produce enough straw off of that. So the Amish family that we were just talking about, I'll go over there and thresh, and then I'll bring, or because he's certified organic as well. So, and one of those folds one time, I had a question. I called him and I said, had a question on how to do something, and he says, just bring it over. If you screw it up, I'm gonna have to fix it anyway. So I took the horse over there and he did it for me. So it's always good to have those friends. But what does it actually mean to be USDA certified organic? We've got to follow what is called the National Organic Program Standards. It's 205 in the federal code. There's a whole list of rules that you have to follow. We have to file an organic system plan every year, and it's fairly long. This is the one that the first time you do it, you wonder why you're doing it. But it's a long, everything I have to lay out, what we're going to do, what we're going to use every year, field plan, what I'm planting, all of those things. It's reviewed by a third-party inspector. They make an annual farm visit every year.
Ours is tomorrow.
Ours is tomorrow. So that's just on the phone. So they'll do an inspection along with going through your records. And it's not just a flip deal. We have to produce every seed packet that we have. I have to keep all of that. The seeds. If you save stuff for the next year, I have to have a count for bales and where they're stored in my barn. I have to have, this is the storage and what that storage is. So all of that has to be documented, and they look at all of it. It's probably a 4-hour process just looking through records. And they will ask me questions, and they'll add up, is it enough feed? Was it not enough feed? Could you, so those types of things that we look at. Occasionally, they can make unannounced visits. They can just show up. They're actually required to take so many samples randomly, so they can take a random sample. They send them to a lab. They test for like 300 different chemicals, and they'll tell it if it pops up or not. So that can always happen. All of our inputs and materials that we use, I have to have a materials list that I have to get approval if I can use it. Because it's really funny. There's stuff that you would think it's mined from the earth, you could use it, but the company that does it puts like a dust retardant in it, so you can't use it. So, did you have?
I just wondered if you could explain why they ask you how much feed you use and show receipts.
Oh, that's because am I buying conventional feed and mixing it in there, and does it not add up that you can't raise a pig for that much feed? So does that kind of
Or your sales, do they match what you could possibly be growing on that acreage?
Right. Yep,
Yeah.
Does the tonnage make sense? Does what I have for storage account for what I have? Yep.
If you unintentionally make some small error, is there latitude when they come to do your?
Not really.
Okay.
No, because it is very specific. Before I can do something,
okay.
I have to make a call. My certifier's out of Minnesota, out of Twin Cities. I have to call and say, can I use this? Can I do this?
Okay.
Is this okay? And then she makes an adjustment to my sheet. She emails it to me, so I have a copy that says it's been approved. And then you go. So you got to kind of think ahead sometimes.
Okay.
Or if you get in a pinch, you're on the phone in a hurry. And they're quick. They know it might be a timely, hey, this is a product, can I use it or not, type of a thing. So, yeah. Yep. And then, the other thing is a lot of times people, they'll feed, it's more than just feeding organic grain. A lot of people think if you feed organic grain to your livestock, you're organic, but it's not. I can't use any treated lumber around the pigs because they can chew on it. The ground, if I let, and we were able to because our whole place is certified, but if I let the chickens out on the ground, the front yard has to be certified organic. I can't spray for dandelions if I want my chickens to be able to get out of the chicken run. So it's just those types of things that people don't always think about, that we have to always think about what they have access to or where they're at. So
do you have farmers around you that are not organic, and you have to know exactly what they're using? And
yeah, well, we have to send them a letter. We're under the we also are registered with the state for
Drift Watch.
Drift Watch, yeah, it's a program, and we're fortunate. The neighbor that owns really everything around us, he makes sure he doesn't spray when the wind's in the wrong direction. We were out there this spring. It was a light wind. We went out with a flag and we stood there while they were going. And he says, "Tell me when to shut it off." So he's really good. He split the field because of where the wind is blowing. Now this doesn't happen for everybody, and he owns the ground across the road too. So that was fine because it was south wind. So he sent his hired guy over there to work. And as soon as that wind switched, we called each other, and he came coming across that field, got the rest of his field done, and then went back. So it's a lot of communication, and
We're very lucky.
we're very
Yes,
lucky
yes.
because I've heard a lot of other horror stories.
And part of your organic systems plan requires you to have a buffer around your farm, not their farm, right?
Correct. So all of that's in place to protect
To prevent it.
protect that. So and yeah, we're just really lucky to have who we have doing that. So yeah. It's more than feed the bedding. People don't realize that. I can't just go out and buy straw. It has to be certified organic straw. And it's a trickle down effect in all of that. So from the pig standpoint, like I said, we're farrow to finish. So gestation and farrowing. We use Berkshire cross pigs. Everything's at least 50% Berkshire. That's just because of the meat quality type side of it. Otherwise, there's some Duroc. That's where you get the red. There's some old Spot in there, some Hemp in there on the south side. But when you save back your breeding stock, if you do that, eventually you build up the amount of Berk that's in them too. But we farrow in open pens with straw bedding. They have access 24/7. They can come and go as they wish. Farrowing barn was made to be able to farrow in the hot summer and the cold winter. I designed it. The biggest thing is that you worry about is moisture in a building. Dry and cold is one thing. Moisture and cold, that's a different thing in the winter. So when I designed the building and built the building, it looks like a 1930s farrowing barn. It's Tyvek paper. It's got airflow from the outside. It's got vent systems. It's got vent systems in the inside to pull. I can slide those and adjust those. We don't get moisture in there. And then it can shut down. So in the winter it can shut down but still have airflow. In the summer I can open it up and we've got big fans that run through there to blow air through too to keep it cool. So, and I actually have slides so I can open up even the pens so they're slatted in the summer to let air flow through, and they can shut down and keep a breeze off the pigs in the winter, plus creeps and heat lamps, and so is the way it was designed. Like I said, they're insulated, and then they always have fresh water to be able to drink as well. And wallows to go in, mud wallows. These are just
That's covered today for sure.
Yeah, the wallows are full this morning, so I don't have to fill them, so we're good there. But this is just some pictures farrowing in the open pits. You can kind of see the heat lamp creep area where the little pigs can go. That was actually while they're farrowing. I was in, she'll text me at night, "Are you coming in tonight?" Oh, she still had another one, so I'm out there with them, but that's all straw bedded down. Just a few more pictures outside the farrowing barn. These are all by the farrowing barn pens. This is kind of the alleyway. You can see how it's slatted and opened up for summer. And then I've got inserts that go because it's double, and then that keeps the breeze from coming through. For big dogs, I got big. What's that?
How many sows do you have?
Anywhere. Usually we've run 6 to 12 sows, and we'll run. I've even got like dog flat doors. You can't see because it's summer there, but I've got a flat, and it's just like, and that keeps stuff out. So. From the finishing side, again, they're straw bedded. They have 24/7 access to the outdoors and indoors. They can go either place they want. Again, same thing. I've got them built so we can open up windows and everything in the summer if it's hot out. We've got sprinkler systems, wallows, fans, everything to keep those pigs comfortable. And then, again, those buildings are warm and dry in the winter as well, and fresh water. And these are just some of the indoor pictures, outdoors where they're out as well. And so they've got wallows built in. It's kind of like they've got their own built-in swimming pool. So they can get out and up on where it's dry and cemented, and then they can go down into the wallows when it's hot.
So you probably can't feed them just household garbage,
No.
food garbage?
No. Now we can take extra garden produce because the garden's certified organic. I was going to say something about that. So if I had a garden that wasn't certified organic, I couldn't take the produce down to them. But because everything is,
And you would have to record that in your
yes,
yes,
we have
records.
to keep track of all that. The nice thing with the draft horses is the buffer of hay, because I have to take so many bales out of that chamber when we do the buffer. If I'm doing it at the same time, because they can't be fed to the pigs. But the horses aren't certified organic, so I can feed the buffer or use the buffer as pasture for the draft horses.
For some reason, they always eat plenty of it.
Yeah, they eat plenty of hay. The buffer doesn't take long to get through. So we sell pork. We're licensed, and we have warehouse license and processing license, so that we can sell individual cuts. So bacon, bratwurst, roast, chops, ribs. We'll have some of this stuff back at the other place too, if anybody's interested in it. And then we also do bundles, custom halves and wholes. We've got all-inclusive bundles. And then we've got some small, like a grilling bundle, breakfast bundle, some of those types of things too that we sell.
This is such an interesting operation. Thank you for providing organic meat. Do you sell directly to the consumer?
We do.
So you don't sell anything like the stores or everything is done?
Yeah, currently our sales are all direct sales, farmers market sales, and we are part of the Iowa Food Co-op in Des Moines, so we sell through there as well. Now our pork is not certified organic. Our pigs are certified organic. The pork cannot be because the locker that we use is not certified organic.
So they can't put the
So
label on
it cannot be labeled as certified organic. And the cure that they use for like bacon and the ham is also a conventional cure. The spices that they use for us for our bratwurst and sausage and that kind of thing, we have custom done for us and our certified organic ingredients. Aside from the guajillo peppers that are in the chorizo, those we were not able to source as an organic, but the spices are, the pigs are, the meat is not certified.
Because the locker would have to be certified. So even when you cut a fresh pork chop, because they're not certified, they can't put that stamp on it.
Nobody's inspecting that facility.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Did you know that Story County has organic certified locker?
Story City.
Story City, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I figured you did. Yeah.
All right. Laying hens. We use a variety of breeds for laying hens. Again, they have indoor-outdoor access, and laying hens have access to green grass. All the ground, again, we kind of brought this up earlier. If they're on it, it has to be certified organic, or if they can get to it, it has to be certified organic for those hens.
And they're all loved.
Yes.
But do they lay indoors?
They're supposed to.
You get some that go find somewhere to lay, and you find.
We have very nice laying boxes for them.
Yes.
And it's highly suggested.
And like I said, we have to start them at day old or on an organic system. And we have our vegetables as well, and we raise a variety of vegetables. All our vegetables are raised outside in the soil and in the sun. We don't have any high tunnels or we're greenhouses or anything like that. So, and we raise a variety of vegetables, and I don't know if you want to talk about anything with the vegetable part of it. Again, the inputs all have to be approved, anything we do or anything we use. And sometimes, like I said, you think of something and you call up there and you're like, well, why not? And it's something weird, but it's because, like I said, there might be a product that's mined from the ground that you could use as a fertilizer, but the company that you buy it from put a dust retardant in it, something like that. So there's those little things that you don't think about, and that's why we have to check with that certifier to make sure. And there's a list of things that you can go find, and if they're OMRI is a term that there's a list of OMRI approved products, organic approved products that you have to go out and you can look, and some of them can be used for vegetables, but you couldn't use them for livestock or those
Some
different.
things can be used for chicken.
Yeah, there's certain things that you can use in chicken feed that you cannot use in hog feed. Even though they're certified organic. Well, chicken feed and hog feed. If you use that product in the chicken feed, you can't use it in the hog feed. So, those are just different things that you don't think of until you get into it and start doing it all the time. So again, we raise a variety of produce. We've got a few different things we brought with us as well that we'll have back at the other place.
Can you give us an example of what you would use for pest management, like insects in the garden?
Well, this year we've used mulch is a nice one that really helps with some pests. Timing of planting, soil temperature, planting when it's right, really makes a huge difference for getting those plants off started healthy and vigorous, so that the bugs don't bother them as much.
Diatomaceous earth.
Yep, we can use DE. There are some organic insecticides that we can use, like neem. We try and stay away from that as long as we possibly can. But there have been some years when it's been just, that's what they are. This year the grasshoppers have been absolutely horrible. It's been so hot and dry. And I don't know that there's really anything we haven't, because there's not much.
Just lose half your cabbage.
You just lose, yeah, you just lose some of it, and hope you can make it up somewhere else. One crop does well, one maybe not so much. It has been a tremendous cucumber year for us, which is absolutely new to me. Normally we have a really hard time with cucumbers, but this year you'll see we trellised them. We made some teepees out in the front and grew them up and put the what's it called, the fabric,
fabric
on the ground underneath them, and apparently that works. So
trial and error. Yeah.
And in that area, the reason we went with that mulch, the mulch we did this year, is because we'd had thistle issues there, and it's tough to get rid of those. And so we thought, let's do it. Let's put something there we can put a fabric down and just try to smother them this year. And so we'll find out. You'd be surprised, that fabric started raising for a while. Now it's gone down, so I'm hoping they're dead. I'm hoping they're dead under there. So
what do you use for mulch?
well, a lot of times we'll use straw for mulch. Like you said, this year we did use some black fabric on the ground, and hopefully that, like you said, we'll get rid of some of those thistles, because I like to go barefoot in the garden, but not in that corner. So
I don't want to inject, maybe you have this in your presentation, but you mentioned the diversity of what you grow and produce on your farm. And if you guys noticed, she said 10 acres. They're making a living off of 10 acres, not thousands of acres. And you have diverse products coming off of the farm. So in a bad year in one.
We are not making a living.
Oh, sorry. I shouldn't have
No,
assumed.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. I wish that we were, but we do have a very diversified, we go down to farmer's market and people kind of laugh at us because, we have pork and vegetables and soap, and it's like, what's the soap from? Well, we have lard from our pigs, and so I make soap to use some of that lard. I mean, we use a lot of it just ourselves, and we sell some of it, but there's always more than what is there, and so that's one of those things that I came up with that we can do, and we can use it, and it doesn't have to have any scents in it. It doesn't have to have any artificial stuff in it, and it works. The joke at the house is that it's Amish approved. Our Amish friends, I took them soap, and I don't know why, because
it was a gift for something.
Yeah, it was a gift from something, and it was hilarious because we were over there, and they said, "Do you have any more?" And I thought, why do you need soap? I mean, because there's people over there who make soap. Anyway, they really liked the soap that we make, and so we have sold some over there, which is just kind of fun to talk about. Not everybody has the Amish asking for soap.
Right. Yeah.
These are some other products that we do sell in the wintertime. I have a friend up in northern Iowa who has access to a lot of greenery, and she cuts greenery and puts the wreaths together, and then I do the decorating on them and sell them around here. And then I've always made candy at Christmas, and so fudge and toffee are some of the seasonal products that we will do as well. So.
I have a question.
Are these other products, are these organic or?
The soap, I use our lard, and I use organic, like coconut oil, olive oil, shea butter. So the ingredients that I put in them are organic. It's not a certified product, but I do use organic ingredients. As far as the toffee, that one, I can make them all organic, but for where we sell them and for what people are wanting, price point wise, I generally don't. I generally use conventional products for those.
Would the soap not be certified because of even the lard, I'm assuming, from the locker?
Yeah, I mean, it's ours and processing is ours, and I don't have a certified kitchen to process it and call it organic. So it has organic ingredients. When we market like our pork and stuff, we say organically raised pork. So that's a term that we can use to indicate that the pigs were organic, but the product is not certified. So you have to be careful. You have to be kind of a skeptic and
Yeah, and even
inspector, I
even the
guess.
labels, any label we put on anything, like the eggs are certified organic, so we can use the USDA emblem on there. But when we came up with that label, I think it took us like
forever.
10 or 15 different labels before we finally got it that they would approve
Approve
where we
it.
could put the emblem. I mean, you don't realize that they want the emblem, and the certifier themselves has to be listed on there, and the lot number. So everything, and that's another thing, everything has a lot number too. So when I sell hogs or eggs or anything, I have to trace that with a lot number. So when I get straw from my friend Aiden over at the island, he's got a long lot number. What field, what year, how many, all of that comes off of that lot number. So it's traceable. And so, yeah, those certifiers, all of those labels are looked at as well. And people don't always, and so like she was saying, how we say things, it always seems interesting. Those that aren't selling organic probably don't think about what they're saying. I'm like looking at, well, they can't say it. Well, we can. Somebody's actually watching what we're doing and saying, you have to say this a certain way, and it has to be on the label a certain way. So, yeah. So when we were doing the pork, you can say raised, certified.
That's a good point. When you see natural on a package,
It's
there's
not
no
necessarily-
regulations.
You can only trust it if it's got actual organic on it. That's the only one.
Because there are regulations and standards that tie back to it. There's no definition of natural or sustainable.
And even natural just means there's natural and naturally raised, which are two different too. Naturally raised might be the way they raised it. Again, there's no actual code out there on what the rules are. And on the other side of it, just natural may mean the product wasn't raised naturally. It's just the processing.
It just means, well, like for meat in the grocery store, it means that they have not injected it with a saline solution.
Right.
They haven't.
That's all that means.
Well, I'm a beekeeper, and we have the problem with, people like, oh, it's raw honey, and it's like, that doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
Or it's natural honey. It really doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah, labeling is a whole, I got to look at whole. Yeah, it's a whole nother beast.
It's like
we
if
could
you buy
spend
it from the
days.
local beekeeper and you know what they're doing, the local person,
We like
you know
to
what they're
use
doing.
the term "know your farmer."
Yep.
A lot. Ask questions so that you understand it. I've got a couple customers in Ames that were. I don't even know what the conversation was, but they were talking about some pork that they get from another producer, and they assumed that it was organic because this farmer has organic.
He does have organic beef.
Organic beef, but in his description, it's like organic beef, pork, chicken, lamb, whatever. The only thing that's organic is the beef.
Yeah.
And I felt
The rest
bad
of
because
it is
after
not.
we said something, I found out I knew who he was. He was a person that I knew fairly well. I'm like, oh crap, he's gonna hate me.
We felt bad, but that's one of the
But
things
that's
that,
the honest part of it.
as a
Misleading,
consumer, you have to be skeptical. You have to ask questions if you really want to know.
If you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
But if you want to know, you gotta ask questions.
Because it's a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Mike, we're sitting in Cindy's feed mill.
Yes.
Do you buy feed from
I do buy
Cindy?
feed from Cindy.
Okay.
Yes.
And
I'm
how
over
about
here
that
often.
unique relationship? It's not just going into the store and picking something off the shelf. Are you
You mean
work?
the feed?
Yeah, the rations.
I've designed and all
Mike
the
actually
diets.
put together all of the diets
Yeah.
that we use.
Yeah.
So Cindy mixes them for us.
Based on your preference.
But
Yep.
Mike has designed all of the diets and for levels of protein and
for different
everything.
stages.
And is that a unique relationship? Is that anywhere you could, anywhere else in the area you could have that experience or product?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
No, she's a gem to have here.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only reason that we can be organic realistically, where we're at for our pigs and chickens.
Yeah. Because we can throw a rock and hit our place. So
Yeah.
because when
Okay.
we moved there, we had another farm and we were selling pork, and we were doing more of the natural, our own rigorous
As much
standards
as
or
we
whatever,
could.
and as much as we could, but there was no real source. And when we
That
moved
was
here,
viable to be able to.
she wanted to go that way, and I'm like, no, I can't. And I don't know how I had heard of it, but I had heard of it it was probably a couple of years before that. I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to Google. I thought she was in the Webster City. Google, I'm like, she lives like 5 miles that way. I said, well, maybe we can give this a try. And so it's just kind of gone from there, and it's been a good relationship,
Yeah.
and really easy to work with, and it's nice. And I just call in, well, it's usually 11 o'clock at night. I leave a message on the phone, and then
I don't worry
great.
when I hear him in the basement talking to somebody at 11 o'clock.
Just
It's
Cindy.
just Cindy's answering machine. So.
Yeah. So no, it's been really good to have that relationship. Yeah. So this is just some of our contact information. We are working on a website. We had it done, and then something about the domain. This is not my area. The domain and something are not communicating, and so it's there. Like if you pick it up, it says it's under construction, I think, right now. But we're still working with everybody to get it to work. So, but we still do things the old, call and email.
We're very do-it-yourself, so we didn't hire anybody to do it. We did it ourselves, and which may not be the suggested way to do it, but that's how we do things. So I have to come up with a couple-hour block of time when I can sit down and call
Teach
everybody
yourself.
and
Oh, yeah.
make it work. But we'll get there.
How many different farmers markets are you doing?
Currently, we do Ames and we do Webster City. So we've got 3 kids who keep us plenty busy. Then between picking and just gardening itself and loading and unloading for farmers markets, that's about all we can handle right now.
And then she delivers once a week.
Yep, I have a delivery day that I go down to Ames and sometimes Des Moines and Huxley.
Webster City. So.
In Webster City. So
Do you do the market nights up in Webster City?
yes.
Most of the nights, yeah.
Yep.
We've missed a few, but yeah.
Yeah, Thursday nights in Webster City, Wednesday's my delivery day, Saturdays Ames, and the other days are catch up.
Are you delivering through a CSA or anything?
We don't have a CSA. We've tossed that around quite a bit. I put my brakes on for a CSA simply because I just never know what we're going to have, and I don't want to under deliver for what we can sell. So we just go the direct route. This year, if I had a CSA, you'd get like 800 cucumbers.
You figure out what to
I
do.
would probably lose.
And happy cabbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
This year's really easy to go. That one can go to the sows.
That is a nice benefit for us.
With
to
it
be
both
able
being
to-
organic, the nice thing is if you have cabbage, like we had a bunch of cabbage with the grasshopper split on us,
Yeah.
but because it's organic, I can take it down to the sows or something, and that's nice.
Yes.
Is there any part of the animals' diets that you have trouble finding organically?
I haven't. No. You might have to do a little searching and rethinking the way your mindset works. Sometimes you have to change the way you think. But no, we haven't had any real issues from a dietary standpoint. No.
Oh.
I think I got a thumb up in the window. That was hilarious.
I wish I had video of that.
But I think they're going to swap you out.
Okay.
You'll get to
Good
see
talk.
Each one. So each mill has kind of the base, the feed stuffs that they use to make their grain or their feeds. And so we use a lot of corn. This is organic corn. And then our soybean meal that we use is a cold press extruded meal or expelled. And so that means that there's no solvent used. It's just all pressure. And so there's still fat left in ours, whereas if you got a conventional one, all the fat is out of it. So it makes for a little fullerness in the soybean meal. Other grains that we use are oats and wheat And these are pretty much locally grown. And then we also use flax. I didn't get any of the whole peas out, but ground peas. We use sunflower seeds. This is a flax meal pellet. We'll wind up grinding this again for the chickens, but for the cows and for the goats, we leave it as a whole. And then this is just a product to show that was for scratch grains that we throw a lot of it together. And so part of the reason that we use so many different grains is because our growers have to grow small grains every third or fourth year in order to stay organic. And so by us using those small grains, we can help them have a market for all those small grains. And so we'll be in the market. I mean, there'll be other small grains that we'll be bringing in. I'm looking for some barley will be coming in yet, which I don't have right now. There could be some triticale. There can be, I'm looking for some canola. And the other guy, I think, was telling me that he might have some. So anyway, so these are kind of the products that we will grind and mix. Some of them we'll leave whole. A lot of these, like the flax meal and the ground peas and the flax, we use in a non-soy product. We do a lot of non-soy. I'm not sure why, but that's a big push right now. And so there's just, I love playing with different grains. And so, but we also use other products. We use a lot of alfalfa meal, alfalfa pellets, Redmond salt. We use kelp. We use millet. We use diatomaceous earth, fish meal, just all of these different pieces in order to make the complete feeds for everybody. We have vitamin bases. Everything we use has to be approved through a certifier before I can use it. And so, you know, if somebody says, well, you got to try this new product I have to run that past a certifier before I can use it. So that's kind of the products that we use. Yes?
Millet, you were talking about millet? Yeah.
Well, the millet, I'm looking for Milo as well, but millet, I'm having luck with millet. I'm trying it. I'm not overly thrilled with it. I'm hoping that maybe Milo will be a better product for me. And before I'll really start bringing in large quantities, I like to experiment with it, see how it works in an animal. Can I keep a lay rate up over 90% in a hen? How fast am I growing on the, we don't like to just throw a product out there. We actually try to make sure that we're going to get, what you're expecting that feed to do. And then as far as Kenza, I think that's how you say it.
Oh.
Is that how you say
Kernza?
it? Kernza?
Or some,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
I haven't got anybody that's offered it to me yet, because you have to remember it has to be organically certified before I can use it. And so I have to have an organic grower that's going to try that first. And I think right now so much of it is being used in forage blends that I'm not sure how I would incorporate that.
So sometimes people come with their recipe, and sometimes you already have a blend that you suggest.
I have my own rations. I have where, if you want something really off the wall, and if it's something like, I had a guy in Kansas that wanted worm food. I don't know how to make worm food. And so he sent me a ration, and we made him 2 tons of worm food, and we sent that to Kansas. and I'm thinking they're still doing okay. Because there's just some things I wouldn't even have known where to begin. I don't know what worms eat. But we do try a lot. I have a lot of people that want me to leave something out, like the non-soy. So we developed the non-soy, but now I've got people wanting non-soy, no corn. And it's like, well, you gotta leave me something. And so, because you've got to have enough carbs and enough proteins to make it all balanced. And I'm probably, and people think that you can just throw one thing out and another thing add in, but those amino acids and everything have to balance in order to keep that animal the way we want it to be kept. So we're kind of sticklers that way.
Got a question.
Yes.
You said that when you come up with a recipe like for chicken feed, you test it out on some chickens. You have chickens here that you test it out on? Or?
Well, I can't keep any livestock here, but I've actually, when we were first, years ago, in 2002 when I started, I had like Dennis Weiss. We ran 2 sets of 300 birds of turkeys through to make sure that we were getting the rate of gains that we wanted and that our proteins and everything were keeping in check. And so we did our turkey trials there. I had a guy in Colorado do my ducks. I used 2 different places to do my non-soy layers so that we could make sure that we were maintaining a 90% lay rate. But it's really hard to do a rate of gain trial on separate farms because you don't know all the other things that are affecting the birds. Is one outside? Is another one being kept inside? How much space has each one been given? Is one have forage? Does one not? So there's just, it's hard to set a trial on multiple places, but we do try to test everything before and my goats, the reason we have goats, not just because of you, but we were trying different dairy rations on them. And now my cows are kind of guinea pigs as well.
Oh. Okay, just wondering.
Cindy, is this all knowledge you've acquired through Iowa State? Or how did you acquire this wealth of detail?
Steep learning curve. It's actually, I do have a degree in animal science, and I have worked on setting up a computer program with one of my customers where I can play with rations a lot faster to make sure that they balance without having to use, I don't know how many of you know the Pearson squares, but they were terrible. If I had to do everything with Pearson square, we would not be here today. So that's where you have to cross your numbers to get your proteins right. But anyway, that's a horror thought. But so anyway, yes, and I have fallen back on different nutritionists at Iowa State if there's something that's not quite coming up right, or if we feel like we're having an issue, and they've been good to work with me.
And
So
you grow some?
I do grow some of them. Orchard grows some of them. Where's Orchard at?
Red coat.
Orchard grows some of the corn, some of the oats. And I have specific growers I like to go to. My flax, my sunflower, the peas, there's more and more peas being grown in Iowa. But the flax, the good flax has a nice shine. It tells you that it's got a lot of oil in it. And I can grind that and have that as a full fat and have that go into my feeds. And it just gives the birds such a nice shine on their feathers. The sunflowers are primarily going into goats and dairy cows, but I'll throw it into a scratch grain for color.
Is this, is this the feed that you're talking about that you mix to feed your organic chickens?
Right, or anything. I make feed for ducks,
Mike's hogs.
turkeys, hogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I feed Mike's hogs. I feed Amber's chickens. Not feeding any sheep from somebody.
Does she grow her own feed?
No, she doesn't have them organic. They're not
Oh,
organic.
that's right.
And so, but anyway, so that's what we do. So now I'm going to show you how we do it. 90% of what we grind. And so, but we'll grind this, we'll grind the peas, we'll grind flax, we'll grind all of it. So it goes through here, and then that'll go up through an auger. That auger goes upstairs to a weigh hopper, and then from the weigh hopper, we'll add all the different grains, and then it drops into this mixer over here. So I'll let you kind of wiggle your way over. All through my goblet.
It's okay.
And this is where we got last time, because everybody wanted to go upstairs last time. But the auger goes upstairs, there's a weigh hopper, and then it drops into, this is a 2,000-pound ribbon mixer. And then from here, this is a 20% chick feed. So this has got the soybean meal, the corn, and all the vitamins, minerals, everything is in here. And so this would be a complete feed, and then it has the lot number, ready to go.
So like the vitamins, minerals, is that a powder that gets added?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In the mixing room, we'll do all of our little recipe stuff in there.
You do your special ration if you have minimums.
You know, sometimes if it's something that's really quirky, I have a small mixer, I'll do 100 pounds. But just to see how it's gonna go. But normally I 500. I mean, otherwise it gets lost in the mixer.
Yeah.
And so 500 is, yeah, it's really the
So
minimum.
when you switch from one ration to another, do you have to clean everything out too?
It depends. If we're doing non-soy from soy, everything has to be purged, and you'll see that there's purge buckets. And so usually we use oats for a purge, and then everything will be cleaned. And then, like this last week, we had almost a whole week of nothing but non-soys. And then we'll go back to, but do I have to change between a chicken and a duck? Not normally. I mean, because that extra vitamin D isn't going to affect anything per se on the levels that we're putting it in. But going from a chicken to a pig isn't going to be an issue. But if you're going from like a goat, which is a whole grain feed, to something like this, yes, you're going to want to have a purge in between.
And then you purge, what do you do with that? Is there somewhere you can blend that into something?
It usually goes to my house. my animals get all the leftovers, and you put a little cider vinegar on there and some molasses, and they don't care. And so, yeah.
So, Cindy, how many employees do you have?
It's George and I pretty much run the whole place. There's two of us, and we make. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we do about 200,000 pounds every tonnage report, and so that would be every 6 months. So we only do, I don't know, maybe what would that be? We do about between 300 and 400 tons is all we do here. So for two people, I mean, it keeps us busy. But
it's not just a hobby.
It's not just a hobby.
No.
Yeah.
Could you do more? Is there demand that you can't meet?
Could we do more? If I could hire more, if I wasn't 64 years old, more, yes, I do think there's a lot more potential. And I just have not pushed it because I don't want to get any bigger. But if you wanted to get bigger, you could. And yes, I do think the demand is there. I push away, I won't do dairy. Dairy cows, I got stung really bad on a dairy, and I won't do dairy. The margins are too tight and the risk is too high. And so we do a lot of our smaller producers. I find that it's safer, it's kind of more my wheelhouse. I like working with people, and so it's more of a, and so, you know, maybe you're only going to do 1.5 tons to those people, but you have a lot more of them. And so instead of doing 15 ton, you know, a week to this guy, I'm doing 15 ton to a lot of people. And
how many tons did you say per year? 200 to 300?
I don't want that in there.
Good work, Dave. How many mills like this are there in the state of Iowa?
Let's see, I was the first one that's certified in 2003, and then, let's see, there's one in Riceville, there's one in Washington. You can kind of say there's one in Kelowna. There is one up in northwest Iowa. I'm helping another guy get started on custom up there. There's several across the border, 2, 3 of them. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's more than 6 of us. Yeah, we're still kind kind of a specialty.
So is the trend toward more organic production of agricultural products here?
I want to say there are certain areas that, yes, it's growing. You know, milk production is always going to be there. But as far as the meat production, it's expensive to raise meat with organic grains. And so, but you can, I will just say that once you've gone that way, it's hard to go back.
Well, and think about what you see at the grocery store on the shelf. You see a $2 package of pound of bacon that's conventionally raised, and you see $15, $14 for organic. That's a tough sell when you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes to create that pound of bacon.
Which is kind of, and I don't know if Mike's is that high, but I'll tell you, you have his smoked chops. You're never going to go to anybody else's smoked chops. I mean, it's just one of those things that you're getting a heritage hog. You're getting so you're bringing some of that fat back. You're bringing in some of that redness back into the pork that has been lost because they've gone so white with they used to call it the other white meat. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the flavor was lost when they did that. And it was a marketing trend, and they were trying to sell the leanness, but with the leanness, you lost your flavor. And so we're bringing that hopefully back. I think you can see it and taste it in the eggs. When I do a premium, when you add the flax back into a chicken's ration, you get an omega-3 effect in the eggs, and this is where that bright orangeness and the albumin starts to rise. It's just a whole different egg when you crack it and look at it and eat it. It's just a different experience. And then you go back and you buy your high-V eggs, and it just sprawls all over the pan. And it's just all about what's in the ration. It really is. When you watch the EB, commercials on their eggs, it is true. What you feed those chickens makes a different effect on what you're eating in the pan. I hate to leave you guys all stuck back there. Y'all back okay?
How do you package the majority of your feeds? Does it go in something like that, or is it bags?
We do bulk. Come on out and I can show you. The way we do it here is that you can bring your...
Wait until we're all here.
I can do that.
Some of it on one more.
I did that out there with the hazelnut. You guys got stuck with the rain again.
So you make nuts, you said hazelnuts, you mess around with hazelnuts?
I have 400 hazelnut trees back there. Well, we can poke our head out, but yeah, there's 400 hazelnut trees in my buffer. And so I wanted a horizontal as well as a vertical buffer. So, but anyway, so since I'm a manufacturer, I tell people they can get wholesale price if they come here. And so what we do is you can bring in a tote, I've had people bring in garbage cans or whatever they want to bring, and we'll put it on here and we'll fill it with whatever they want. And so we'll weigh it out and they can get both price. If it's a lot, we have nylon totes, and we'll fill a 2,000-pound tote. We'll stick it on a truck, and we'll ship it wherever you want. We stuck it on a trucks and shipped it. But we ship all over the U.S. So, and I have people that come all the way in from South Dakota with their trailers, and we just put several ton on and send them back home. So
Can you count local egg suppliers who
Can you say that loud so everyone can?
She's wondering if there's local egg producers. Amber would be one, Brecky's would be another. I mean, I've got, what's really cool, Mike would be another. And so, yeah, we do a lot of kids projects where it's their first business. And so they'll use our feed and then they raise the chickens. I get paid in a lot of ones. And so that's always fun. But somebody asked, I also sell in 50-pound bags, so, and we don't keep a lot on the cart. And the reason being is that, as one guy pointed out, it starts oxidizing as soon as we start grinding. And so we, one of our other things is that we grind to order. And so we don't keep a lot in stock. But we do 40-pound and 25-pound for McMurray's. They were my very first customer and have stayed with me all 20 years. And so they're a big plus for us. And so I've been told I have 5 minutes. If you want to see the hazelnut buffer and see what hazelnuts look like on a tree, look at that, the rain's really quick. We could run out and look real quick.
Okay.
And so to be organic, you have to do your own buffers. And so this is my organic hayfield. This is my buffer. It's 30 feet. And I wanted mine not only to be horizontal, but vertical. And so this is 6-7 foot tall now. And then as you come in, I can I was telling Amber, if she's going to push for people to come pick grapes, on August 19th, you can come out and you can start picking hazelnuts. And if you flip them, you'll see that these are covered in hazelnuts. And so you would grab a cluster like this. Oh my gosh. And this is what we would dry.
So when are they ready to harvest?
Well, if I wait when they're really ready, the nuts will start falling on the ground. So I start about fair time, and I've been picking by myself, and there's 400 trees here.
Oh my
God! And so it's one of those where I go through a lot of books on tape, and I pick in the evenings until the dog says it's ready to go home. And this is a 15-year-old tree here.
So this is as tall as
This is as tall as they get, so I can reach in and harvest the top tree. I just pull it towards myself when I go to harvest it. I just pull the whole thing over and just pull. There's a nut in each one of those. No, that's one of the reasons. So
how do you market them?
There's a market through the hazelnut, Midwest hazelnut growers bought them last year. I took 1 year's crop and sent it to Iowa State, and they helped me with rations on how to feed it. But I get about 400 pounds of dry nuts, and the ration would take me several years' crops to really make it work in a hog ration.
Do you have a price list for your feed?
I don't have a price list. I mean, I have my board, but it's kind of fluid because of the markets.
Okay.
But you can always call and get a price. But
well, just a ballpark figure.
Well, a layer feed would
layer.
be 26 1/4 for a basic layer, is what I get.
For 50 pounds.
You know, I've never weighed out per tree. It took us about 5 years before we just started getting the what do they call them, trindles, and they come out in the winter. I can tell when a tree is going to have nuts in the fall because it has like these little shoots that come out, and that's actually the flower comes out in the fall. I were trying to figure out how that works, and she wanted to come out and do that because it pollinates different than a lot of trees.
5 years before you got your first.
You can figure 5, but now these trees are just loaded. But when you drive by them, you have no idea that there's that many nuts on there. I sell them.
To who and why?
I sell them to the Hazelnut Growers Association in Wisconsin. Bought them last year.
Just as nuts? Just to eat as nuts? Okay.
In the shell. No, they took them out of the shell. They have a sheller. And I didn't get rich on it. It was $1.78 a pound.
Are they organic or buffer?
This is buffer, so it'll never go organic. But they wouldn't have given me a premium on it anyway. But if they ever do, I can take all of this into it. And that's kind of, what we're thinking about.
Cindy, can I get a picture of you kind of like holding and demonstrating? Okay.
Get a close up.
Okay, so there.
Do you dry them here, or would you just
I just put them in. I put them in a big tote bag and just let them dry. And then you're gonna think this is nuts. I put them in my big mixer, and that takes all of the husk and everything off. So then when we drop them, it's just the nut.
Awesome.
When are they ready?
We'll start picking here in a couple of weeks.
Did you plant these as seedlings, and did you have?
They were bare roots, and I have to laugh. Jerry Ossie with the Lions Club came out with his potato planter, and we cut a line and we plopped them in and squeezed them, and that was all she wrote. We did mulch them, and of course the first year it was dry. The next year it was really wet. And so, but they're native to Iowa. They're deer resistant. And they hold up to being completely covered in snow every year. I mean, they are just
Dirty.
They're just
Do you
the
think
snow.
they would choke out honeysuckle?
I don't know. I get a lot of mulberries that pop in here.
Do birds eat the nuts?
The deer?
Birds.
The birds.
Squirrels?
That's, yeah.
Ah.
And so you have to kind of beat them to them.
Oh yeah.
And so if I wait too long, they'll open up. When they dry, they turn brown and they'll open up and the seeds will just fall. And then you have to scramble to get them. So Bridget's saying she's ready for it.
So you take them off before that.
I do. I take them off while they're still green, and then I dry them in the mill.
Thank you very much.
Could you?
We buy our seeds from a place in Oregon. We have to have a license to buy the seeds. Then we bring the seeds to our greenhouse next door, where we germinate them, and depending on weather, 4 to 6 weeks later, we transplant them out to our field. Our field is conveniently located 13 miles from here to the north. It's my husband Brian's family farm. Been in the farm for almost 150 years now. When his grandmother and uncle who farmed died around 2000, his sister Amy and Derek Pleckner and we purchased the farm. We were ones that bought the farm. We purchased the farm, and over a matter of years, we eventually put the whole thing in the CRP program. And so then when the federal government legalized hemp, we started to talk about growing hemp out there, and because it was all in CRP, we could immediately do organic. So we started our first, it became legal in Iowa in 2019, 2020 being the first growing season. We started in 2020. We had the second and third licenses in the state. The first year we did a bunch of different things because no one knew how to do this. Plus, we don't have a farming background, we didn't have a farming background, and we didn't know anything about organic farming. But it was really important to us to farm organically. It's important, I think, for all crops, but hemp in particular, it just draws everything out of the soil. In fact, they use it some places for remediation of toxic waste dumps. They're looking at using it for radioactive cleanup. So you don't want that to be grown where there was dicamba the year before, right? So we were lucky that we had some acres, and I was lucky that Brian and his sister were willing to go along with this foolish plan. And so we took 12 acres out of CRP. The first year, we farmed all 12 acres. And we tried a bunch of different varieties. We tried a bunch of different styles of growing. We direct seeded some. We did transplants for others. I think we did 4 different varieties. Really quickly learned how stupid of an idea that was. Because, for example, it costs $500 for each variety for the state to test them. So, we had
couple $1,000s in testing fees, for example. The direct seeding also was pretty much an utter failure. Our land had been in prairie grass for 18 years at that time, and we plowed and dissed and tilled, but the seed contact just wasn't good enough to germinate the seeds. We also did 2 types of hemp. There's both full season hemp, which grows, like corn, it just grows until it's matures. And then we did some that's a little bit more like soybeans, and it was done in 45 days. 45 days from seed to harvest. But those were the ones, the short season ones were the ones we direct seeded. We also did a crop in the greenhouse, and those were the short season ones. So we did harvest that.
So I haven't heard it in any presentations yet today, but you said we could go directly into organic. I wonder if folks realize that if your land has had a prohibited substance on it, you have to wait 3 years before you can grow something certified organic on that property.
Right, which is one of the barriers for organic farming for most farmers, is there's those 3 years where you're using organic practices, which means pesticides, very restrictive growing plan, and you can't sell it as organic, so you don't get that organic premium. So we are really lucky that way, yeah.
Do you know if there was hemp grown on the farm before?
If you're like before World War II, probably.
No, there wasn't.
Okay.
Other than the
Well, and so that was my next question with the ditch weed that's left over from the hemp that was growing. Do you have problem with the reseeding itself?
The question is whether we have problem with being fertilized by the ditch weed. Yes. So the first 2 years, we've grown 2 years, this is our 3rd year. The first 2 years, we grew feminized seed, which they treat it, they expose it to conditions, they don't really treat it, they expose it to conditions that make the seeds be 99.9% female. And then we walk the field and look for the males and pull those out. Because you don't want your hemp, you don't want your hemp to be fertilized, because then it puts its energy into producing seed and not into CBD, and we're growing for CBD. So the first year we had no trouble. The second year was the year of the grape show, and we don't know where the pollen blew in from, but the pollen blew in. And that's the hemp that you'll see hanging up there. We picked it all. The process of stripping off the buds is called bucking. We bucked it all, and then testing came back. It's got really low CBD. So there's some things I'm going to be able to do with that, but I'm not going to use it to make the products that I'm going to show you in a minute. This year, the hemp field is progressing really, really quickly. It was all brand new to the United States in 2019. There were a couple of pilot programs around the country 2 or 3 years before that. But for the most part, no one had grown hemp in the United States legally, and since World War II. And honestly, a lot of the expertise in this field comes from people who are freelancing in the interim. I was not one. So this year we're growing a variety of brand new certified organic seed, which is even last year I couldn't find certified organic seed. So this is certified organic, and it's also it is even if it's pollinated, it shouldn't produce seeds. I'm kind of taking this on trust because it's brand new and no one's tried it before, but there's studies out there. I think this is a reputable seed supplier. And so hopefully, even if we get some pollen blowing in this year, we won't get seeds. Yeah.
I know that THC levels are highly regulated. How have you dealt with keeping in the 0.3% or less?
The question is about THC. So, the difference between industrial hemp and marijuana is that industrial hemp can have a maximum 3/10 THC. THC is what makes you high if you smoke marijuana. So the amount of THC in the hemp that you can legally grow is less than ditch weed. It's very, very low. And the question was, how do we keep ours at that level? When we all started this, nobody knew for sure what the answer to that was. They were pretty sure it was a combination of genetics and growing conditions. It seems now like it's almost 100% growing conditions, with the odd exceptions like being pollinated by the ratio. So you try to find a reputable, reliable seed supplier, and then you kind of cross your fingers. You can test as you go along. So you have the CBD and THC production, kind of they have a ratio of kind of 1-to-1, and they tend to go up slowly, and then as the plant approaches maturity, it starts to go up sharply. So in theory, you can test, and then it starts to go up, you harvest. The reality is in Iowa, you can't do that, because there's not a single lab in the state that will test hemp. And the closest labs I can find still have a 3 or 4 day turnaround. And that plays into some other regulations that apply, because we have the organic regulations, but we also have specific hemp regulations. And in Iowa, we have to give the state 30 days notice of our plan to harvest. So last year we started the harvest, or last time we started the harvest on October 7th. There's not. By September 7th, I had to tell the state I was going to harvest. And then they're very nice. They let me pick the date. They come out and test. But they have to come test, and once they test, within 15 days of the day they drew those samples, I have to harvest. I have to be done harvesting.
So there'll be a sign-up sheet at the
So we're gonna pick up grapes. We're gonna pick hazelnuts. We're gonna get things.
And the lack of a nearby lab, I spent thousands of dollars on testing the first year, and the results came back after harvest. So the second year, I just didn't test. And this year, I'm not going to test. This is not a practical way. This is not practical here. In other parts of the country, they test. It just can't be done in Iowa. The regulations here are not horribly friendly to hemp production.
So to answer,
15 days.
And why is that?
The reason is because once they pull the test, the plant will continue to produce THC. So they were very concerned that, I would have them test 30 days, like on September 1st would be 0 THC, and then I'd wait until mid-October to harvest, and I'd have 10% THC. So it's really an artifact of the marijuana days. Honestly, at this point, those regulations don't do anything. The genetics are reliable enough that we're not going to get, that's not going to be an issue. And there's efforts to raise that maximum level of THC, because it could be quite a bit higher without there being any danger of people being intoxicated by CBD products.
You ship it to Illinois then?
No. Here's another beautiful regulation. If they test it and it tests hot, you have to pay to destroy it. So you take your babies out and bury them.
So are you basically holding your breath for that test that comes in, and if you're good to go then, there's nothing else to worry about when the state is making that initial test?
Once we get that test back, if it's below the threshold, there's nothing left to worry about except getting it all done. It takes 2 or 3 days to get the test results back. So if you have 15 days from when you draw the sample, that means you have, I try to always schedule it on a Monday, so I get it fast. And then, so I maybe have 12 days to harvest. We harvest with a fun-loving group of friends and family, which means we have 1 weekend. Because we're all working, right? And so, for good or for bad, in this instance for good, it's always been a drought year when we grew, and so it hasn't rained on us, because if it rains, we can't harvest, because mold and mildew are huge issues in hemp production. So the last time we did it, the raindrops started falling literally as we carried in the last box. And so far, we've been okay. Who knows? And I don't really know what happens if it rains on one weekend.
Could you put fans and a dryer in the facility? Okay.
So when we harvest, you can see the stuff that's growing up here. And if you look up, you'll see that there's green snow fence everywhere. When it's time to harvest, we drop all those down, and every single one of those from floor to ceiling will be covered with hemp. You'll see some photos in there. And so it's very humid in here, and it's very dense. So we use huge fans like those red ones, and we have dehumidifiers all over. We run them 24 hours a day. And so far, we've been okay, but we've never run it in wet before. And I just think that's, hoping we never have to try that. So, let's just walk up and I'll just show you.
Seems like you almost have to be a lawyer to do this.
Luckily, you need one lawyer and one person in the mechanical.
Oh, she's got the speaker. Okay.
When we bring them in, we go out to the field, we use a combination of machetes, huge lawn clippers, and we have a weed eater head that looks like a circular saw. And so we take 2 people per row. Someone cuts it down, the other person picks up the hemp, and we carry them over and toss them in these big boxes, and then we truck them back here. And then when we get here, we hang them up here. If they're really big and thick, we might cut out the middle and hand cut and hand hang the pieces. And then it takes about 3 weeks to dry, but we usually harvest at the beginning of October, and since it's friends and family who help us do this, we usually start bucking the hemp around Thanksgiving, because that's when my son is home from college. So we just strip off the buds. And then we take that someplace to be processed. So our products have CBDA in them, which is a mother chemical of CBD. It's more active in the body, so we really like having that in our products. It's really hard to preserve, however, because heat turns CBDA to CBD. And most of the hemp processes use heat. So we use supercritical CO2 processing, and the closest, somewhat reliable supercritical CO2 processor who's organic was in Oregon. So we just rented a Ryder truck and drove it out to Oregon. Brian and I drove it ourselves because while this is completely legal, and while it's completely legal to drive it through the other states, you can see it.
How do you prove it, right? Yeah.
So we travel with the paperwork, and it would all be fine, but it might take overnight to sort it out. I feel like if someone's going to jail overnight, it probably should be me and not some college-age kid. So Brian and I just do that ourselves.
Do you always have to clean it up to Oregon?
Well, I am hopeful that someday there'll be someplace closer. Because I want CO2 processing and because we're certified organic. So most processes are not organic, and even fewer of those are CO2 processing. So I do have a friend in Ames who processes hemp, but he uses ethanol, and I don't want to use that process. So he has great products, don't get me wrong, but we are really committed to preserving the CBDA. I think that's That's sort of our little sub niche in this business.
The state had to license all of the hemp producers to make CBC, right? You can't just go out and grow it. You have to get a license, a farm, and do what you a license from the state.
Right, the question is about licensing. So yes, we have to have licensing at every state. So to grow hemp, we have to apply for a grower's license. You have to be fingerprinted, they do a criminal background check. You have to tell them exactly where you're growing. You have to report when you plant, how many seeds you planted, what varieties you planted, and then you also have to tell them when you're going to harvest. So when I plant my seeds in the greenhouse, I've got a license for that. And then I have to tell them when I move it from the greenhouse to the field. And then I have a separate license to make the products, my CBD products. And then I have a third license to warehouse it here. So the licensing is pretty rigid and really expensive.
Does it help with your organic record keeping? Is it similar, or are they two different processes?
They're really two different processes. I mean, there's a little bit of overlap, but not very much. It actually overlaps more with tax records, which I learned the hard way in my second organic paper. I know it'll be hard, but there might be some people trying it to see if they can grow it. It can also eventually be used for animal feed and animal bedding, but that's not approved yet. So now we find the slides. And we aren't going to be in order, but okay. Sure, we can take questions on the class, yeah. All right. Well, these are going to be out of order, but this is the first year that we had a crop in the greenhouse. And this is my greenhouse manager, Kim Peterson, and Michael Tingle was the boy next door at that time. Here's our first harvest. This is what our field looked like the second time, where we did the full season larger growing varieties. So this is just what the field looks like. We plant 5 or 6 feet apart, depending on the tractor out there. So 5 or 6 feet apart and 4 to 5 feet apart between the rows. And then we plant cover crop in between, which we get from Cindy McCullough. And this is when our determinate season crop, this was in the maturity the first year. So those got like 3 feet high and 3 feet wide, ideally. Ours were a little smaller because we planted and did fertilize properly. This is our second harvest, so you can see it starting to fill up. This is the last batch of the second harvest. So you can see, you can see the red figures starting to set up. The first year, when we harvested the greenhouse, because it was done first, a lot of them were going to dry, and we thought through the drying process properly. And we decided we thought we could hang strings from the rafters and tie them up, which is weird because we had 100 plants in the greenhouse. We really quickly realized how time consuming that was. And so then we cast it out for ideas and came up with the snow fence plan. This is us getting ready to plant. We are super low tech. So we use a water wheel planter, which you can buy either tractor drawn or horse drawn models. Only big difference is the ditch. And you can see it here. This holds water and fertilizer, and then these are just 2 row seats, and these are our seedlings. And we just ride along this yellow wheel, pokes a hole in the ground, we push the transplant in, push it hard, and then give it water and fertilizer and just roll along. It's actually surprisingly efficient and even fun. But you can see, we use baking sheets because they were the perfect size to fit on here, and then I bought covers for them. So we just take our little baking sheets and plate. So here's the first year season. This is right not too long after we really planted. So we put down plastic mulch, and underneath there is drip tape, so we can water to the drip tape. Sorry, these slides are not really anymore, but here's let's get a little bit bigger. Here's this vine that we grew from seed. The ones that germinated grew great. This is our farm dog, our original farm dog, Stella, which is actually tied in with Mike and Janine. So our farm dog went blind, and we were all very worried about it. She went blind shortly before Christmas, and we had ordered one of Janine and Mike's hams for Christmas. And finished in there, we were letting the ham cool before we put it in the refrigerator. And our sweet blind dog Stella found the ham, pulled it off the counter, and ate the whole thing. So we quit worrying about Stella. At that point, we knew she was going to be fine.
So her sense of smell was still fine.
And she loved that ham. Stella would endorse and packaging details. So this is our drip irrigation line. So the first year, we had no idea what we were doing. We still don't really know, but the first year we really didn't know. And I hired this consultant from California who was part Savant, part Scanlan, as I later knew. So he would, here in California and Oregon, where organic farming is pretty commonplace. And so he would say things like, 2 weeks before planting, you're going to need to irrigate. Okay. And I asked him how to do that. So, just drive around. You'll find farmers always have empty water tanks around. Just see if you can have one. Yeah, not in Iowa. So then we decided we have to dig a irrigation pond on 2 weeks notice. So I went online, I found the source of a pond line that they could ship in here by Memorial Day. And Jeff Halpern, who does all of our work, sent his heavy equipment operator Herman out, and in 4 hours, he dug us a pond, he got the liner in, and full of water. So first year especially was just making things work. This is again our water grow planter with our seedlings on it. This is our first year with the plastic mulch. As you can see, our lines are not straight. We worked really, 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 really hard for this bad outcome, but they worked. Of the whole thing, the organic part, the hemp part, one and only thing I hate is the plastic mulch. And so we're trying to find a way to not use it, but we haven't figured that out yet. Here's some seedlings. Oh, here's some digging in the pond. This is our son Michael, who's our farmhand, and finding us a way to make everything fun. Here's the pond we dug. Here's the first effort of putting down the plastic mulch. The plastic mulch strip line layer has discs that are supposed to create a raised bed and then throw dirt over the edge of the plastic to hold it down. It is an art, not a science, and it took us a while. The first year we were essentially just hand shoveling the dirt on the plastic. This is the group that we figured out. This is the very first seed planted ever in our operation. And a bit of shameless self-promotion. This is my greenhouse. There are plants that are available neighbors to do their Herbs are raised organically, but they're not certified organic because to be certified organic, we have to use certified organic seeds. We are able to get organic seeds from herbs, but many of those herbs are propagated vegetatively, and we have not found the source of the vegetative starch that's certified organic. So we use organically certified potting soil, we use organically certified fertilizer, but we can't claim that they're certified organic. Our hemp, however, is certified organic. So in the greenhouse, we have to keep those separate. We have to prove that the hemp was not touched by anything we used anywhere else. Mostly we dealt with that by only using organic stuff on all the greenhouse. Last year we got aphids getting on something. So we ended up having to spray some of the plants for aphids. So we had to show our certifier, we had to prove what we used. I actually had to send them a diagram of the greenhouse and where the hemp was, and where we're going to use the chemicals so that we wouldn't be overspray. These are our products. We have 6 products. We have soft gels that you take in like a vitamin. We have gummies, although they're sold out until after harvest. We have 2 topicals. We rub on your skin for pain and mosquito bites and sugar bites. Now we have 2 drops that you drop on your tongue and put in food. And those are all certified organic. Here's our first, this is me coming back from picking up our first lot of seasoning products, which I had made for us in Wisconsin because it's a certified producer there. And they let me come out to the facility and make sure that I felt comfortable with who they were and what they were doing for me. This is a borrowed farm dog after a hard harvest. It's my daddy's dog. And here's what this building looks like right after harvest. It's floor to ceiling like that. It's in goodness. This is our farm. And this is why we don't have to worry about, we can't use pesticides, they're not approved for him, but we don't have to worry about it because there's 200 acres of farmland, of grasslands around us. It's sent to all beneficial insects and media. This is a terrible picture of me, but just to show you how tall they get. So this is before the plant burst out, but it's probably 6 feet tall.
Look right there. So, it's 0.3 percent. Right? When you get this whole building full at 0.3, you know, and you're sitting in your breathing.
We have not had any reports of that. So we also never had really good luck with not having people come out and pick our product to see if it was any good. And partly by chance, partly because of failure implementation, but also, and perhaps the only smart thing I've done in this entire operation, the first year I hired some high school kids to help us plant and just make sure that they knew that there was, we wouldn't really smoke this stuff, they'd be better off without our dips, and that really just spread the wildfire. And we really never had a problem with that. The only people who've ever found in our field are their assistant drivers.
But that's why there's no hemp in the central region. Because they're high school kids.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And this is our second year. Our ones are so much straighter. This is in here only to remind me to tell you. I know Mike and Jimmy talked about that they have to have everything they can use in their production approved by their organic certifier, even the bleach. So I use bleach to clean off my counters and clean this general cleaning. They made me send them a picture of the label so they could confirm there was only bleach. So they're very strict about this. Here are some seedlings. This is just so you can see the size of the seeds. We drench them in milk before we plant them, so that's what that powder is. But they're just the size of the through the side. Yeah. This is the tag. We have to have tags when we ship. It says what the year is, and then we have one lot, so it was pretty simple. Here's our variety. This is the first year of the short season. And again, an example of how low tech we are. When we do direct seeding, we just put in spice jars and pour them out in our hands.
Other side. No, the other. Yep. Oh, maybe it's no.
That's it? Okay. We're sticking with you, but that's it. It's things will do questions on the bus. And we're coming pretty tight on time. Thanks, everyone.
I guess, well, first of all, I kind of like to start off by just thanking Erica for putting this all together, and thank you all for coming out here today and, having an interest in agriculture and driving around Hamilton County and seen everything that you've seen. It sounds like it's been a really fun day. We're glad you were able to make it out here. So on our farm, our primary product is cheese. So we milk these cows, no more than 20 cows at a time, and then we make all that milk into cheese. And one of the things that we do is rotational grazing. So we move the cows twice a day, and that's what Kevin is doing right now. And I'm not sure if they're going to fall for it or not, because they did just get some new grass a couple hours ago. And every time they get new grass, they're usually like, wow, new grass, I haven't eaten in 2 hours. But it seems like some of them might be sort of ruminating already. No, they're like, well, okay, let's check that out.
The boss wants it.
Could I get on the other side of you? Get some
Yeah.
pictures to the door.
Check the bus out.
I think we were going to still try and do it on the bus.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so we just wanted to tell you a little bit about farming, a little bit about the breeds of cows that we have here, and then I was going to bring some cheese on the bus and let you do a little cheese tasting and talk to you a little bit about those products. So hopefully you can fit all that in and work that out on the bus. So we started selling cheese in 2016. It took a while to kind of build up there. It took a while to find this land that was good for grazing. Not too big, not too small. But we have about 80 acres here. We rent most of it. And then kind of back behind there we have the farmstead. We have built a building that meets all of the code requirements to commercially make cheese and milk cows. So we actually have a grade B certification with Iowa Department of Ag, and then that's what you need to turn everything into cheese. I guess I went for it. So we make about 12 different kinds of cheese.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of the idea behind the farm is that Kevin and I both have a farming background, so we're very interested in kind of what we're doing with the soil here, starting out with a really good soil, and starting with that soil, then putting on some really good forages. So most of these pastures we've reseeded and then done this kind of grazing that encourages the kind of growth that we want and the kind of nutrients that we want to see our cows eating. And then from there, we've kind of built that foundation to get some really good milk. And the milk will change seasonally too, so we're making different kinds of cheeses as the different kind of milk is coming in. And then our end product is these different cheeses.
Is it different cheeses every year, or is it different cheeses, or you just have a certain recipes?
Per season?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the question was, do we make different cheeses every year or different cheeses through every season? And the answer would be that we make different cheeses throughout the seasons. Some of the cheeses we make all year long. One example of that is our Iowa Alpine. And the Iowa Alpine, you can definitely tell a difference between Alpine that we would be making in the spring when the cows are on fresh grass, or if they're eating it, later in the summer with a different kind of mixture of grass with different nutrients there. And then there's a really big difference when they go into hay in the winter. And then we make some different cheeses that are actually kind of hay-based during that time. So I think Kevin was going to talk a little bit about some of our farming practices and a little bit about the history of the cows and the different breeds that we have here, which he's put some work into. And while he's doing that, I will walk up and down and pass out pieces of cheese. But if you could exercise some self-control and not eat the cheese until we start talking about it, then just kind of take the cheese and hold on to it. And then when Kevin's done talking about farming, we'll talk a little bit more about what you're tasting with the cheeses.
Spend a lot of time watching the cows and just watching what they eat. I find it fascinating. So we try to have very diverse pastures, and so they have a lot of different choices, and so it's kind of interesting to see what do they go for first, and what do they maybe wait until a little bit later, and what will still be left that they won't graze unless you make them really hungry. So this, I don't know how much Renee said, but we graze a pretty long rotation. That means that we move the cows once or twice a day, but any individual pasture gets rested for a pretty long period of time. Like this was this actually hasn't been grazed yet this year, but it was hayed in late May. And so like the alfalfa is starting to go to seed. There are little pods on the alfalfa, which generally would be considered like really poor quality. Well, we do that on purpose to allow the plants to make really deep roots, and it allows more diversity because there are some kinds of plants that need longer rest periods. So if you graze really frequently, you're going to select for the things that can survive under that. But then in order to have dairy quality feed, because we're not feeding any grain, we are not making them graze all of it down. So we're letting them select the best bits and then moving them on so they can then have the best bits of the next bit. So this is my best estimation of the best bit. So this is, the alfalfa, it has really long stems and stuff right now, but they'll clip off the very top of it and then maybe get some of the leaves from the sides. Same thing with the grasses. Sometimes they'll nibble off the seed heads, but mostly they'll get the tips of the leaves. And they like dandelion leaves. They like dandelion flowers when they're fresh. Same thing with the clovers. They like clover flowers and the kind of the tips of the clover, but they don't really like the stems. So I don't know. I'm kind of a grass nerd in a lot of ways. So our business is essentially turning this that people can't eat into delicious cheese. And, it's kind of alchemy. Like, it's magic. It's still, like, every time that I make cheese, it still, like, blows my mind. Like, even just going from milk to cheese, curds, within one day, it's like, whoa, how does this happen? So,
do all your cows have names?
All of our cows have names. Yeah, so we got our first calves in 2010 before we moved here, because we moved here in 2012. We got as bucket calves. We still have two of the originals. They aren't here. They're retired. We have some rented pasture that is at Orchard Dials Farm, about 10 miles that way. And that's where we have some young stock and dry cows. And the two retired cows, most of our cows don't get to retire. We'd love to, but we can't afford to just keep them all to their natural death. It's because cows, if you're not making them have babies and milk and that sort of thing, they'll live till into their 20s potentially, and so at any rate, so we still have Ingrid and Gunhild. So most of the cows we started with were brown Swifts that we got from our friends the Gilberts over near Iowa Falls. We got some, Gunhild we got from an Amish farmer near Kelowna, and she was a Holstein Jersey Ayrshire cross. We got some New Zealand Friesians from another Amish farmer way down near Bloomfield. So Friesian it's similar to a Holstein, but it's much smaller in size. And I don't have any of the original Friesians anymore, but we have some of the second and third generation of those that have been crossed with Jersey. So any of the ones that are pretty much like black or black and white, those are New Zealand genetics, so they're like a Jersey Frisian cross of New Zealand Jersey and New Zealand Frisian. We do all our breeding with artificial insemination. We have the big kind of red and brindle cows are Brown Swiss Normandy crosses. So Normandy is a French breed selected for performance on pasture and specifically for good cheese milk. So that's the region where Camembert originally came from. And actually the sort of most famous Camembert de Normandie, I think it under the standards of identity, it has to be made from this breed of cows. We don't have any purebreds of the Normandy because we've all the Normandy genetics we brought in has been as frozen straws of semen. And they're bulls that are in France. So they're actually French genetics. And then we're bringing in, I mean, we're not importing, they're companies that import that we buy from. New Zealand genetics, so Frisian and Jersey. And then we have bred some brown Swiss. And we still have a few pure brown Swiss. So like this one really close with the big horns, kind of a brownish gray. That's Tika. That she's kind of close to the fence right in front of us here. She's a pure brown Swiss. They tend to be pretty big animals, but they've done really well in our system. But we're selecting specifically brown Swiss animals that are on the small end of the spectrum, and that, when I'm selecting both cows and when I'm selecting bulls, I'm selecting first for health traits and fertility traits. So I want a cow that's going to be trouble-free, get pregnant easily, and have good milk quality. So, but it's not that milk production isn't important for us, but it's not the first selection trait that we're looking for. And anything that is in a dairy AI catalog is probably going to have, if it made it into the catalog, it's an improvement on the breed already. So, so if we're selecting from there and selecting for health things first, it's not going to be like it's a really bad milker or something like that. And another thing that we do that's different other than the grass-fed is we milk once a day. So we have to select for high,
Output?
I'm blanking on the term right now, but basically they have to have high udder capacity has to be high. And we can't have the biggest producers, because if they're going to make 100 pounds a day, which is what, your top Holsteins would be doing, modern Holstein herds would be doing right now, and you milk them once a day, you would have some major problems, mastitis problems, because they can't hold that much milk in a 24-hour period. So we select sort of medium milkers with high capacity udders. And also, if you look at, I don't know how many of you are cow people, but compared to most dairy cows, our cows are, beefy in their look. If you're used to beef cows, they look, they look bony and skeletal, but compared to most dairy cows, they're beefy in their look, and they're also kind of high body condition. We, despite not feeding a lot of grain, we're able to keep them in good condition. And while we're not certified organic, we do try to follow organic practices for the most part. And so a big part of that is animal health. So we're trying to keep our animals healthy so that we don't have to treat them. Now, granted, if there is something that they need to be treated for and antibiotics are the best, most humane option, we will use them, but that doesn't happen very often. It's been, well, okay, last summer was the last time we had to treat anything, and that was because we had some hoof rot and pink eye cases, and those are some very painful things. They won't kill a cow, but they're very painful, and there isn't a great way to heal that without antibiotics. So, and I'm not going to engage in. I'm sorry if I'm insulting. I know there are people that have different opinions on antibiotics, but I would prefer to never have to use antibiotics. But that's how we do it. So, and then as far as like soil fertility, our only inputs are purchased hay. So we're buying hay, and then so our cows are outside year round. So they're grazing for 6 months out of the year. They're getting 100% of their diet from the pasture, and then for an additional 2 to 4 months, they're getting fed hay on pasture. So like we're spreading hay out on the pastures. Now because of water, we're limited on where we can do that because most of our water lines are above ground, and so after about mid-October, we can't really. The cows have to walk to where they can get water. Yeah, so we're kind of spreading out hay for them to eat once the ground is frozen, or if it's dry enough. When there isn't enough standing forage for them to eat, or sometimes to extend the standing forage, we'll feed some supplemental hay. But by doing that, then that fertility is getting spread out onto the pasture where they're living and eating, without us. We're using diesel to bring the hay out there with the tractor, but it's a lot less than if we're having to bring hay to them in a lot and then bring manure out to the fields. And so that's the main way. But then usually there reaches some point in the winter. Usually it's like late winter when mud season comes. Mud is our biggest enemy, and I don't want to do damage to the pastures, and so then we'll keep the cows in the lot, and then we buy a lot of corn stalks and oat straw to bed the cows to keep them dry, so they're on like a bedding pack system. We don't have enough barn space to keep everybody under a roof. We have one loafing shed that has kind of a roof and 3 sides, but it can't fit the whole herd. But basically, if they have a dry place to lay down and they have protection from the wind, they'll be fine. We've had very little health problems with that, and we actually cold weather is rarely a production issue. Heat in the summer is really our biggest weather struggle because they get heat stressed. Honestly, most of the summer they're heat stressed because anything above 70 pretty much is uncomfortable for cows, so they're heat stressed. But they get used to it, so you don't really see a dip in production until it's like in the mid 90s or higher. Those are the basics of the production.
We could switch over to cheese now.
We could switch over to cheese if you want to talk about that.
I got a question on the organic worming. I didn't dawn on me till today. It's like, how do you worm?
We don't. So, Oh, the question was worming, and maybe maybe worms are a limiting factor, but I guess what I figure is that if there are animals that are having health or production issues because of worms, then they're going to be selected out for those other things, and then we're hopefully selecting for animals that are succumb to worms less. And considering that we don't have much problem with keeping cows in good condition, I don't think worms are much of an issue, but I haven't sent in samples or anything like that, so I don't know, but we don't do anything for worms. But also the fact that they're constantly moving and they're not coming back to a place, generally, in the spring it might be 3 weeks till they come back, and this time of year it might be 60 or 60 plus days, but that should be spreading out the life cycle so that they're having less worm pressure.
Yeah.
No, they can hear his voice.
Is your fence electric or do they?
It's electric.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not on right now.
Well,
though.
that's what I was going to say. They probably just think it is, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's and they're not going to test it if they're not given a reason to. If they're not being pressured by being scared of something, or they're not overly hungry, they're generally not going to test the fence.
So, your milking process?
So we have a milking parlor over in that red building, if you could see it over there. So we call that the cheesery building. So half of the building is sort of the milking side, and the other half is our processing. We have 3-door separation. And yeah, so we have a pit parlor, so we have 4 milking units. The cows come in and line up four at a time, and we have 4 milking units. It goes through a pipeline into a bulk cooling tank, which is where it's stored, and then we make cheese twice a week. So then we transfer it from the tank through the wall to the other room into the pasteurizer. So that's milking, and yeah, like I said, once a day. That's a complicating factor with dairy farms is you have to have lanes going back to the parlor from every pasture, and you have to figure out a way to get them back. And so that's depending on our lake bottom, which is that way beyond those trees, our furthest south pasture, we don't have a straight line back, so it's kind of a roundabout way to get there, and it could take 45 minutes or more to bring the cows up, and then they sometimes don't, especially if it's hot, they're pretty slow to make their way back to the pasture, so you have to kind of push them back again. So yeah, it's.
Is there a certain time that you milk? Do they know what time of the day they get milked? So are they ready to be milked?
Well, yes, they're ready to be milked, but they're not like waiting at the gate where you're like, I've heard of that such mythical beasts. I'm sure it happens. I've never observed that. It could be that if you're feeding grain, that cows are more excited because they get to come out of the pasture and go get fed their grain. They get milked, and it's not right on the button the same time every day. Maybe it would be better if it was, but we're not like clockwork exactly in our milking schedule. So
is it normally morning or afternoon? Or
it's normally morning.
We can have more questions later too. I'm just feeling bad for everybody who's holding on to cheese.
Oh, I know I couldn't hold on to it any longer.
So we'll go ahead and Kevin's the cheese maker too. I work off the farm most of the time, so he could talk about the cheese too. I happened to select the cheese today, so I guess I'll talk about it, even though Kevin made it, and has kind of taught himself to do that and come up with all these different kinds of cheeses and read a bunch of books and watched YouTube videos and really had, I don't know, probably like 6 hours of formal training. So I chose 3 cheeses for today that are sort of a progression of age. They're not all the same recipe of cheese, but I think you'll kind of see how they're different. The end cheese is the darkest cheese. That's the oldest cheese. So we'll do that at the end. And if you're not really adventurous, you don't have to be too adventurous for that cheese. But if you're kind of wary of new foods, you can go ahead and skip that one. It is a little bit different. But the first cheese is the mildest cheese, and it's the one that's more blocky. It's like a little rectangle I gave to you. Not the triangle, but the rectangle. Yes. So that cheese is our Emmentaler. It's in the same family as a Swiss cheese, so it kind of has a little bit of nuttiness to it that you should taste. It's actually my favorite cheese, which is weird because I don't like Swiss cheese at all, but this one has a lot more flavor and it has a little bit of sweetness to it that I really like, and I kind of like those milder cheeses. It also melts really well, just like a Swiss cheese, so this is like my go-to grilled cheese sandwich. Uh-oh. You guys are upsetting him. That Emmentaler Kevin made in December, so that is the youngest cheese that I have here. And the time goes so quickly when we're aging cheeses. I almost said so that was 6 months ago in December, but it's a little bit more than that. And that cheese is one that we found we could only make during the winter because the cows needed to be eating some ensiled or ensiled feed, so like a wrapped bale or baleage, and that's some feed that has been fermented, so it's baled when it's still wet, so it's kind of like sauerkraut or kimchi for cows. And we found, accidentally at first, that when they were eating this, kind of sour feed, that we would get the little holes in the cheese and get little eyes in there. And so some of our cheeses started turning into Emmentalers, so then we embraced that and went ahead and made Emmentalers in the winter. So this was made in December when the cows were eating that ensiled feed. So the next cheese is our Iowa Alpine, and that's the triangle cheese. Yeah, so if you try that triangle, it kind of will take you through a whole cheese journey from your first bite. You're supposed to pay attention. Well, really, you're supposed to have like some sort of aroma that you smell your cheese first. And then as you take a bite, you'll kind of get a different profile in the first 20 seconds of eating the cheese. And I feel like you can really notice on this one. And this is a more aged Alpine, so this one was aged 18 months. So it was also made in the winter. It was made in February of 2022. And I'll let you just kind of think about that cheese for a minute. It's definitely a lot more sharper. So this is our most popular cheese because a lot of people really like that sharpness, and that's what they're looking for when they see us at farmers markets or when they're out and about. A lot of people love cheddar, and they say okay, I want something that's like a cheddar that has that sharpness. This one is in the same family as a Gruyere or Comté or an Asiago. But it's Kevin's own recipe that he kind of, he actually started with our first cow. He made this recipe in our kitchen in, what year would that be, Kevin? 2008. So that's been kind of in development since 2008, and we're really happy with where that is right now. So that's our Iowa Alpine. So the third one is also an Iowa Alpine, and this one was made in the summer, and it's been aged 3 years. So it's twice as old as the first cheese that you tasted, and it's not necessarily something that we would sell. I kind of brought it for educational purposes. It might be like a cheese that you kind of love it or you hate it sort of thing. It's much sweeter, so you can see how those sugars really developed as it was aging. It kind of has a caramely taste to it. I think, and even within myself, sometimes I love it and hate it too. As you're chewing it, you really love it. I think that maybe it should be paired with something. I don't really like the way that the cheese ends when you're tasting it, but maybe you do. And usually, you know, if I was trying to sell it to you, I would just kind of let you form your own decision, because you're kind of with like wine tasting too. Your brain is very easily influenced by the impression that people give you, like when you're thinking about it, when you're talking about it. So, you know, things like packaging the cheese and showing that we have sort of a high-end, you know, value-added artisan product here is really important to, you know, people's taste buds ultimately too. So that's something we think about in marketing and talking about cheese and kind of looking for the right customers, depending, you know, everybody has different tastes, so we kind of make these 12 different cheeses for different people's different tastes, different recipes, different times of year. Just try and keep that diversity there. So,
and you'll have these cheeses at the winery for us to get?
Yes, so Backcountry Winery sells our cheese. And Amber, I was going to check with you if you were in stock or not, but I have more that I can send with you right now. So if you...
I have a few Alpine and a few Emmentaler, but we're pretty low.
Okay, so I was going to send some more Alpine and Emmentaler with Amber, and you can purchase it from the winery there when you go back if you'd like some.
What, when you talk about aging?
Yes.
So this one that you said was 3 years old. Now, if is it still aging? Obviously, it is. But.
Right. It is still aging, and there's active. So yeah, the question was, does the cheese stop aging? And it doesn't. There's still active cultures in it that, you know, Kevin mixes in there on the first day, and they're just kind of working in the aging room very slowly. The aging room is about 55 degrees. So that's kind of the ideal aging sort of environment for our cheeses. I don't know if you want to talk. Yeah, you can talk about technical stuff.
So when cheeses age, the first month or two, they're most affected by bacterial activity. So the fermentation continues, which is the initial sort of breakdown of the milk sugars into the byproducts that make it more acidic, make sharp flavors and things like that. But they also then have some secondary effects that break down. They have enzymes. They form enzymes that make different proteases and things. So proteases are enzymes that break down proteins, lipases that break down fats. And so as the aging process goes on, the actual bacterial activity slows down. So after about 6 months, there is not much as far as living bacteria in there anymore. And so at that point, it's the enzymes that are left over from the rennet and from the starter cultures that you added that are slowly degrading, you know, and there are some things that like take really long time to take effect, and some things that are more quick. And so you know, and like the longer, so like noticing a difference between a 2 year and a 3 year is less of a difference than a 2 month and a 3 month. Well, in some ways. It'll be less obvious differences. But the other thing is that we do natural rinded cheeses, so we don't have, well, except, well, for the most part. So these ones are all natural rinded. So that means that there's no coating on the rind. So that means two things. It means, one, that it's also drying out from the outside in over time, and so you're having some hardening that is happening as well. But the other thing is that we have bacteria and molds that are living in our aging room that are molds, yeasts, all kind, you know, that kind of build up populations on the surface of the cheese, and so those are creating flavor changes from the outside in as well. And that's really interesting to watch, because that changes throughout the year. Like visibly, you can see, like sometimes you'll have one of these that is not a blue cheese at all. It'll be coated in blue mold. Now, blue mold needs oxygen, so it's not like you're going to have veining in the inside like a blue cheese, because you have to actually like pierce to introduce oxygen for that veining to happen. But it will have, you know, some effects on the exterior and sort of a little bit on the outside edge. And some people don't like the molds as much, or the rinds. So all the rinds on our cheeses are edible. They're hard. I really like to eat those. I find them the most interesting part. And so they tend to be a little bitter. And that's because molds tend to raise pH instead of lower the pH. Bacteria generally ferment and they lower the pH. Molds generally raise the pH, and that creates bitterness. But that's just where you notice a lot of really complex flavors, is right on the edge, because that's where that's where I as a cheesemaker have the least control, is on that surface, because it's like whatever's growing there. Now you can control it. You can wipe things down. You can do brine washes. You can even, you know, some cheesemakers do, you know, beer washes or wine washes or liqueur or brandy or what, you know, like there are all kinds of things you can do on cheese surfaces. You can wrap them in leaves. You can wrap them in wax. You can do things to affect it. But with a natural rind cheese, and we generally do almost no rind maintenance. Like, we don't wipe them down. We don't do brine washes, anything like that. And so we'll flip them and move them around, just to kind of have it be sort of even. And we try to maintain the environment so that means temperature and humidity. So we're trying to keep it at 85% relative humidity in there, and which can be difficult. It's actually in the summer is the hardest for us to keep the humidity high in the aging room. So think about it this way: because we're cooling the air, that dries the air, and so it's a lot harder. And our technology for raising the humidity is dumping buckets of water on the floor. So very fancy, but also the more cheese we have in there, the more sort of even it has, because it stays, because they all breathe and that sort of thing. So I don't know. That's about where my scientific knowledge of aging ends. But also I know everybody's probably eating their cheese by now, but you can. Next time you're eating some cheese, a trick, and you can try this on wine too, anything that you're tasting, take note of both while you're chewing or swishing it around your mouth, this is wine, you know, how it tastes in your mouth, but also breathe in, feel how the flavors like on the back of your throat as that air is hitting, as it passes over whatever it is you're tasting, as it hits the back of your throat. And then breathe out, and then as the air, so a lot of your bitter sensors are in the back of your throat, like on the back of your tongue, and so as you're breathing out from what you've swallowed or what you've chewed, that's when you'll detect different things by doing those different things. So I don't know, it's just a fun, you know, I'm not a tasting expert, but those are just kind of fun different ways. Different ways to experience different levels of flavor complexity.
So how large is your aging room?
I think it's like 10 by 20 and like 9 feet tall or something like that. So we have shelves around the edge, So we don't, and they don't go all the way to the ceiling. We could expand by adding shelves all the way to the ceiling. And if we had like rolling shelves where we could move them, we could use the space in the middle a little. And both of these cheeses that we tried today are, they're brined. So any cheese has salt. Salt is a part of cheese making, any kind of cheese, different levels of salt, but and there are different ways of adding salt to cheese. But these ones, after they come out of the press, the big wheels of cheese are floated in saturated brine. So saturated meaning it's as much salt as will dissolve in water. So I actually have to boil it, and I add a little bit of vinegar and calcium chloride to it just to balance the pH and calcium levels in it, just so that it's as close to the cheese as possible in those aspects. But as the brine gets older and it's had more batches of cheese, it's actually kind of better. But that's how it gets salted. So we have a big, like, 100-gallon tank in there that takes up some space as well.
What's been your most time-draining efforts in marketing, and what's now trending to be your most effective?
What has been the biggest time drain in marketing, and what's been our most effective marketing
Trending now
trending,
for you.
like as in what
Venue,
product is the best,
or just how you got your name out there and
Facebook.
You want to talk about that?
I think that our most effective sort of marketing is anytime that we can get into the press. Even though social media is really convenient and really good, it's still a lot more effective to have traditional media cover anything we do. Their reach is still so much larger than any reach that we have. I think we have like 2,000 followers on our Facebook page, which has taken a while to build up there, and I think could be a lot more if we put a lot more effort into it, but it's something that we do pretty casually, just kind of keep up. Like, we enjoy it just to, keep in touch with our customers and people who do comments there and things like that. But we haven't really done a lot of really targeted campaigns or followed some of the things that you just have to do like every day to get on in the algorithms and to get promoted, and all of the kind of the algorithms always changing. What you should be posting should be changing too, and it's really a lot of work. And it's like, you can totally see why companies and other small businesses have like marketing managers and full-time people who are just doing that, because it could be a full-time job to get the attention that you need.
Word of mouth?
Yeah, I think word of mouth is okay too. We're a little bit unique in that our selling strategy is that during the summer we go to farmers markets. So we do the Ames Farmers Market and the Des Moines Farmers Market, and then we're in a few retail locations like Backcountry Winery and Wheatsfield and Ames, so not a lot of retail there. And then we work with a few restaurants too, but like for most people, if you want to get our cheese, then you need to come to farmers markets, and that's a really niche group of people. So for word of mouth, it's like you have to be talking to somebody else who's willing to go to farmers markets, which is a small percentage of the population. And then in the winter, we have a further reach because when it gets cold out, then we ship online from our store, and the shipping's a lot cheaper. It's like we just do a flat rate, $10 a box for and you could get like $80 of cheese. So then we tend to reach out of Iowa more and get more people that way. But it's seasonal. So that works really well for us and for the labor force that we have on our farm. I think other people might handle that differently, but everything has just sort of evolved pretty organically to be like what we can handle doing and what works for us, and then hoping that finds the customers that it works for them.
Your sample box is really wonderful this year. I got it after the new year.
Thank you.
It's yeah.
Yeah,
You got to try a little bit of everything from the really young cheeses to the old cheese.
Right, yeah.
More aged cheese.
So during the winter, she's talking about this. She's in the Winter Cheese Club, so we send out one box of cheese every month, and then it has like the variety in it, and that works really well. You sign up. It works well for us too because we sell the subscriptions when we're buying hay. So we get all that money kind of in the fall when everyone's buying stuff, and then we're kind of in a cheese debt. Then we owe everyone cheese, and we everything. You know, we're not at markets. Things get slow, and we can fill all those boxes January, February, March, and that keeps us busy and kind of keeps us active when things are kind of dreary outside. So it's nice to do, and then people just get like a box of cheese showing up at their door, and they get to eat that for a month too.
You mentioned the farmers markets. Have you been up to Webster City for their Thursday night market nights?
We have not been up to Webster City. We've just been doing Saturday morning markets, so we're kind of on a schedule too. On Thursday nights, I'm typically packaging all the cheese. Thursday night and Friday night, packaging all the cheese that we're going to need for Saturday. We'd like to try some other like we talk about trying other markets all the time, but then we're kind of already on this merry-go-round where we're have this routine and the schedule of the markets.
You might want to look into it. They get pretty good turnout, and just check with the Webster City Chamber of Commerce. And they're the ones that are overseeing the program.
All right, that's a good suggestion to do a Webster City farmers market.
It's June through August, so there's a few more weeks left, and hopefully they'll continue doing this in years to come. This is the second year.
And there's a lot of people at it. It's amazing how many people are at it.
And a lot of vendors like yourself, farm products or things that they make craft wise or
like you guys saw today, there's a lot of really good local producers. So
Are you the one doing the cows on the calendar?
We did. We have. It's been a few years since we've done our calendar, but.
Yeah, a few years ago we used to make a calendar of all these cows. And, not as many people buying print calendars as there once were.
But it was cute.
Well, I don't want to hold you all from your dinner, so one more question, or maybe two. I saw two people raise their hands, so how about three people, and then that's it. But I'm going to do short answers. Yeah.
Okay. How many pounds a year do you do of cheese?
So Kevin makes about 200 pounds of cheese per week.
Per week, so times 52, give or take.
Right, give or take.
200 a week.
Another question?
Yeah. Sir, you with the Iowa State hat.
In the immediate area, is there access to more land if you wanted to scale your business to a different level?
There is access to more land. I think, our neighbors around here are great. I don't know if any of you know all of them, but we couldn't have landed in a better spot for neighborly support in this area, especially Brad Carlson lives there and he is a big haymaker, so we work really well with him to that he's feeding our cows in the winter and also farming some of the land here, so there is potential that if we wanted to rent more land to graze our cows, we could. That's not something that we're interested in doing right now, though. We're kind of sticking with this size and this model. So, yeah, but in the back, the last question.
Where else do you guys sell cheese?
Yeah, besides the farmers markets, we wanted to do the Jewell's farmers market too, and I'm not sure why we haven't.
That's my son. We live in Des Moines, and we shop at Gateway a lot, and they do a lot of local farmers. So is that not an untapped resource, or just you don't need it?
When we started, we did think that we would be in a lot of stores, and we started out we were in Hy-Vee right away, which we were excited about because we just thought we had this huge reach with Hy-Vee. But when you sell to a store, they're basically taking if you as a customer, you're going to the store and you get a $10 piece of cheese, the store is getting $5 and we're getting $5. If you come to a farmer's market and buy it from us, we're getting $10. But when we started, since we weren't selling as much at market yet, we were working with these stores and we were like, okay, that's great, just moving cheese. And then at some point, I was packaging cheese and I was like, oh, I'm going to be short at market. And, I won't be selling this $10 cheese for $10. Instead, I'm going to be selling it for $5. And then we kind of moved away from that direct marketing so that we're not in a lot of stores now. We're members of Wheatsfield Co-op, and we really like what Wheatsfield does and supports a lot of other producers, so we're there. We really like what Backcountry does, so we're there. But otherwise, there's not a lot of incentive to be selling in these bigger stores.
Well, it sounds like online is a good option.
Yes,
Right,
online
yeah,
is a great option
yeah.
too. Yeah. But otherwise, we probably better let you all get going. Thank you so much for coming out here and seeing the cows.